Hey there, there's no music. Your volume's fine. I just don't want to get a YouTube strike, because every time I play this nice opening music that I've paid for, I get a copyright strike from YouTube. An algorithm, I hope you're listening, and I hope you recognize that I'm angry, and I welcome our new overlords, AI. Hi, Stephanie. All right, here we go. Wow, what a fantastic opening with fantastic royalty-free music. Hi, Kimchi. Hi, Stephanie. Hi, Restream.io. Welcome to the live stream. So, we have a couple of whistleblowers that are going to testify against Joe Biden and Hunter's laptop and all the Bidens. And okay, so we have all of this testimony that says that the Bidens are bad and that Joe Biden somehow was influenced by foreign nations, but we don't have... By the way, they never tell us exactly what nations the money is coming from, because Biden hasn't done anything preferential to those nations. In order to buy influence, there has to be influence to buy. But so far, nobody can point to anything Joe Biden's done in favor of the nations that he's made policy on. Oh, he's a puppet of China. Yeah, he just placed sanctions on 31 different companies with ties to the CCP. Doesn't seem like a whole lot of influence was peddled. Speaking of peddling, here's Jim Jordan coming up. We're a little bit behind here. Welcome, everyone. Hi, Sean. Hi, Cujo. Hi, Bave.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. The question is, who are you going to believe? April 26th in front of the United States Senate.
Yes, that is the question. That is correct. Oh, the judges are here. Wow, it's been a while. I didn't even realize they would show up. Welcome, everybody. My name is Kevin Williams. I am your Heavenly Father. This is the live stream.
The Attorney General said David Weiss is in charge of the investigation. October 7th, in a meeting with Gary Shapley, one of the whistleblowers, David Weiss said, "I'm not the deciding official." Who are you going to believe? On February...
Well, what was he saying that in regards to, and was he misunderstood? Because you know what? That happens. Anyway, subsequent to this, Weiss has come out. He's the Trump-appointed attorney who's prosecuting Hunter Biden that traditionally would just be fired as soon as Biden got into office. You sweep out the attorneys and you go, okay, everybody that's appointed by Trump, you're out of here. I'm putting my people in. That's what happens. There's nothing wrong with that. That's when a new administration comes in, that's what happens. But Biden said, you know what? My hands are out of this. Go ahead and finish up what you started there. I want nothing to do with it, which is what a president should do. He basically recused himself from the situation and left Trump's guy in charge of it. And Merrick Garland, who is Weiss's boss, appointed by Biden, apparently gave him carte blanche to do what he wanted with the investigation of Hunter Biden and the taxes and whatever else. By the way, all of this started when Trump was in office.
28th, I wrote the Attorney General asking him why there's no special counsel in the Hunter Biden investigation. He didn't respond.
Hunter Biden is a private citizen.
Which is unusual in and of itself. They always respond to the Judiciary Committee when we write something to them. I wrote again on May 25th. Again, the Attorney General didn't respond, but David Weiss did. And here's what he said. June 7th, he said this: I have been granted ultimate authority over the matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges.
Okay, so that's the Trump-appointed attorney in charge of the case saying that he has the ultimate authority on it. He's been granted that. Case closed. You gonna believe the secondary person who doesn't know what's going on and heard something in a meeting? Or are you gonna believe the actual guy, the source, the Republican Trump-appointed source? Anyway, keep moving.
That's what the U.S. Attorney said on June 7th.
Yes.
3 weeks later, Mr. Weiss wrote me again, and he said this: I stand by what I wrote, but I wish to expand. Wow.
Yes. Okay.
Already changing his story.
No, he's not changing his story. He stands by what he wrote. And he wants to tell you more because you were running off to Fox News and Newsmax and anybody else who would listen saying, oh, he must be lying. He's lying, he's lying, he's lying.
23 days later, and he said this: My charging authority is geographically limited to my home district.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute. You just told me 23 days before you have ultimate authority. Now
you have the ultimate authority in this matter. Yes, that is consistent with what he just said.
change it. Then again,
He didn't change it. He says my charging authority is limited to this district. And he also wrote that I could ask to charge in other districts. I never did.
then on July 10th,
Okay, but we're missing a lot of context here. You know what? I don't want to belabor this too much because Jordan's an idiot.
Mr. Weiss wrote Senator Graham, and he said this, paragraph 2, to clarify,
So you know what? He's a smart idiot. That's the problem.
I have not requested special counsel designation. Rather, I had discussions with departmental officials.
Right.
Mr. Weiss can't get his story straight.
No, that's all consistent. He's clarifying for you. Oh my God. Wow.
3 different stories in a 5-week
That's not 3 different stories. That's expanding on the same story because you keep throwing out idiotic questions, Jim.
time frame. On June 7th, he's Tarzan. He's super. I got ultimate authority. I can do what.
He's Tarzan. You know how Tarzan had ultimate authority? You know, that's the way it worked in the Tarzan movies. Tarzan's born, he's raised by a couple of gorillas, and then he's got ultimate authority, and there's never any more conflicts. He's just like, hey, gorillas, don't attack me. And that's that.
What I want. File charges where I want, when I want, and how I want. June 30th, well, actually, no, I can't. And then, of course, on July 10th, he says,
I was trying to remember anything that happened in the Tarzan movies. I'm believing he was attacked by, like, the bull gorilla. I don't know.
to clarify, I haven't requested special counsel status, but I've been talking to the folks at Maine Justice.
Right?
3 different positions.
No, those are all the same position. Wow.
In a little over a month.
And again, why would Weiss lie about this? Oh, he doesn't want to lose his job. He should have lost his job already. He's got his job because the Bidens want to keep their fingerprints off of this. Joe Biden and Merrick Garland have essentially recused themselves from this situation to make it apolitical. If Jim Jordan is watching, that means not political.
You know whose story hasn't changed?
Who?
These 2 guys.
Okay.
Their testimony has been consistent.
That was a good cut by C-SPAN to go to the 2 of them. This is Fox News. I don't know which feed we're getting, but that's a pool feed. It's just one set of cameras. But whoever's directing this, these 2 guys, show the 2 guys, show the 2 guys. Good work.
Throughout, their testimony has been the same. And guess what? 2 days ago, an FBI agent confirmed their testimony. Who are you going to believe?
Well, the guy is Trump appointed and he's in charge of the investigation and he actually knows what's happening. I might defer to that guy.
The Justice Department can't get their story.
Because you know what? In my life, I've been misunderstood before. I don't know that that's ever happened to you, Mr. Jordan. But that's what sometimes happens. When you say something and someone's in the room and says, well, I'm pretty sure he said this. And then you're like, no. This is what I meant. And if there's questions, okay, well, also I meant this and this and this. No. So that's what happens with words.
Straight, changed 3 times in 33 days, or these 2 guys. The Justice Department that was found...
It hasn't changed. This is so ridiculous.
To censor Americans just 2 weeks ago from the federal court in Louisiana, the Justice Department that said...
The censorship case has nothing to do with any of this.
Moms and dads are terrorists. The Justice Department...
No, the Justice Department never said that moms and dads are terrorists. That's complete bull.
That said if you're a pro-life Catholic, you're an extremist.
Now, okay, well, one FBI division put out a possible memorandum about the Catholic Church, which, once it was seen by Merrick Garland, was quashed completely because it was a terrible idea. So yeah, no, there was actually no prosecution of Catholics by the FBI or the DOJ.
The Justice Department that can't get his story straight are these 2 guys.
Who are we going to believe? The Justice Department, who's been completely consistent, or these 2 guys? It's a good question.
10 years, over a decade of experience for
These 2 guys who brought with them no evidence.
each of them, the go-to guys in international tax evasion cases, the A-team when it comes to investigating these matters. All over the world they've done this and who've been consistent throughout. I think I'll believe these guys.
Okay.
I think they're the ones telling the truth.
That tracks.
And that is fundamentally what this comes down to. So
okay, let's keep in mind through all of this the overriding truth, the fact that Joe Biden could pardon Hunter of any crime he wanted to with the stroke of a pen. If this is what you're after, you're trying to protect Hunter, he's your kid, okay, there, he's pardoned. Problem solved. But no, Biden has gone out of his way to suppress the authority he has. But these guys know better.
God bless you guys for the work you've done, the courage you have, and for being here today, stepping forward because you care about equal treatment under the law. That's what's at stake, plain and simple. I yield back.
I now yield to the ranking member, Mr. Raskins of Maryland, for his opening statement.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon to the witnesses. I thought we might be here today on the matter that the chairman declared as top priority, the crusade to find evidence of wrongdoing by President Biden. But now the majority's long-promised star witness turns out to be a fugitive from American justice in arms traffic.
He's disappeared. He was arrested and he's skipped bail now. The whistleblower that disappeared. He's also apparently a Chinese spy. He's also a Chinese agent. He's also, apparently, according to the DOJ, excuse me, an arms dealer to Iran through the Chinese government. And he works for a Chinese oil company. But yeah, energy company, I should say. But yeah, that's the guy. That's their star witness.
Indicted on 8 federal criminal felony counts and an unregistered foreign agent for China.
Yeah. Also indicted for lying to the FBI.
Who tried to trade Chinese arms for Iranian oil. So I guess he's not going to be a witness for the majority anytime soon. Well, after the failed SAR...
Oh, yeah. Also violated sanctions against Iran, but okay. And the reason he's not here today, he's on the lam. That's their guy.
Reports, bank records, Form 1023, we can conclude that this Inspector Clouseau-style quest for something that does...
Hey, Inspector Clouseau actually gets his guy in the end. So do not compare them to Inspector Clouseau. That is an insult.
Doesn't exist has turned our committee into a theater of the absurd, an exercise in futility and embarrassment. And now we can finally definitively say why the committee's efforts have run dry time and again. Just yesterday, Mr. Chairman, you and I got a letter from Lev Parnas, the Ukrainian-born American businessman.
I didn't even know about this. Lev Parnas had ties to Trump back in the day. Anyway, if you're not familiar with Lev, you can look him up, but this is going to be good.
Who was at Rudy Giuliani's side as his right-hand man for a year between November 2018 to October 2019, as Giuliani and then President Trump tried to smear Joe Biden before the 2020 election with the very same allegations we're still running through the political spin cycle every week in this committee. I request unanimous consent to enter the Parnas letter into the record.
Tell us what's in it.
Now, in this extraordinary 10-page letter, Parnas painstakingly describes the campaign orchestrated by Giuliani and Trump to, quote, dig up dirt on the Bidens and spread misinformation about them through various networks, including government officials, journalists, and Fox News personnel. After explaining this campaign to fabricate...
By the way, Fox News is covering this. It's not being shown on MSNBC and CNN last time I checked. Let me... Oh, yeah, no, that's Fox News. I thought, oh, wait, CNN's covered. No, Fox News. All right. Back at it.
Corruption charges against Biden. Parnas concludes his letter by saying, throughout all these months of work, the extensive campaigns and networking done by Trump allies and Giuliani associates, including the enormously thorough interviews and assignments that I undertook, quote, there has never been any evidence that Hunter or Joe Biden committed any crimes related to Ukrainian politics. Never during any of my communications with Ukrainian officials or connections to Burisma did any of them confirm or provide concrete facts linking the Bidens to illegal activities. As Mr. Parnas concludes...
And I might add that even if Hunter was somehow linked to them, that's not Joe. But anyway, yeah, so Hunter's exonerated of crimes involving Ukraine, according to Lev Parnas. But Joe, again, hasn't done anything that would be a product of influence. They've bribed him to just be Joe.
There's never been any factual evidence, only conspiracy theories spread by people who knew exactly what they were doing. And then he calls on this committee to end its wild goose chase and offers to come and testify.
Wow.
Remember, this is Mr. Giuliani's guy. This is his interpreter and right-hand man who spent a year out there trying to cook the books against Joe Biden, and he offers to come testify. So if anyone doubts anything he's saying, let's bring him in as a witness,
yes,
and let's hear about that crusade that they were on to smear President Biden by promoting the same baseless conspiracy theories that this committee serves up as moldy leftovers every day. At today's hearing, we're going to hear about wrongdoing by Hunter Biden, who's pleading guilty on 2 tax charges and a gun charge next week. We'll hear about the back and forth among investigators, prosecutors, and a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney, over a dozen people who spent 4 years investigating the president's son. We'll hear about how they disagreed on investigative steps and what criminal charges to bring, all normal stuff in government investigations that doesn't usually lead to a congressional hearing. But one thing you will not hear today is any evidence of wrongdoing by President Joe Biden or his administration. Like every other try by our colleagues to concoct a scandal about President Biden, this one is a complete and total bust. In fact, the ongoing case that the majority invites us to interfere with today is actually a striking illustration of the success of the American system of independent prosecutors operating under the rule of law and outside the realm of the kind of political influence my colleagues are trying to exercise today. So what happened? Well, the son of the sitting president of the United States lost his brother and then lost his way badly back in 2015. As too many families around the country know, drug addiction is a dark and powerful affliction. And like other addicts, Hunter Biden made foolish and criminal choices, including failing to pay his taxes and owning a firearm in violation of federal law. And he's now being held criminally accountable for it. His investigation began under the Trump administration. It was conducted by a U.S. attorney for Delaware, David Weiss, who Donald Trump appointed to his office and who Attorney General Barr chose for this assignment to conduct this investigation. In his final press conference in December of 2020, Attorney General Barr expressed full confidence in Weiss's work, saying it was, quote, being handled responsibly and professionally within the department, and to this point I have seen no reason to appoint a special counsel, and I have no plan to do so before I leave. Furthermore, Joe Biden never publicly questioned or checked.
By the way, Bill Barr was Trump's guy. Trump put Bill Barr into the Attorney General seat.
Challenged this prosecution. When it began, he did not decry it as a witch hunt by Donald Trump. He placed his trust in the fairness of the American justice system. When he became president, not only did he not use his power to...
That's a good point. Joe Biden has never complained about this. Joe Biden does not comment on this. He does not call it a witch hunt.
Halt the investigation. He kept in place Trump's handpicked U.S. attorney, Mr. Weiss, overseeing it, even though incoming presidents usually replace U.S. attorneys with their own appointees. And his attorney general, Merrick Garland, made sure that Mr. Weiss, appointed by Donald Trump, had full authority and resources to pursue this probe and charge it however and whenever he saw fit in any district in the country. And in the past few weeks, as Hunter Biden accepted a guilty plea, the president and his attorney general have done nothing to interfere with the case, which is overseen by a federal judge appointed by, yes, Donald Trump. Now, can you imagine Donald Trump saying nothing about a witch hunt or not trying to quash the prosecution if it were his son being prosecuted? Indeed, President Biden's traditional and scrupulous respect for the independence of the Justice Department stands in sharp contrast to Trump's spectacular disrespect for the rule of law and his serial efforts, both in office and outside office, to get prosecutors to go after and lock up his political rivals and to suspend accountability in specific criminal cases when it comes to his friends. When Michael Flynn was investigated for lying to the FBI and later convicted for it about communicating with the Russians, or when Paul Manafort was investigated and later convicted for bank and tax fraud, or when Roger Stone was investigated and later convicted for lying to Congress and witness tampering, an outraged President Trump repeatedly denounced the Department of Justice for prosecuting his cronies and reportedly got Attorney General William Barr to pressure prosecutors to recommend more leniency in their cases. Trump also went to FBI Director James Comey and pushed him to pledge
which Bill Barr denies, by the way,
absolute loyalty to Trump and to find a way to let Flynn go. Ultimately, Trump used the power of the presidency to pardon all of these convicted criminals.
Yep.
Now, unlike President Trump's blatant abuse of the rule of law and the relationship between the president and DOJ, there's no evidence that President Biden has involved himself in any way in the investigation into his own son, an investigation that's been overseen by Trump's appointed U.S. attorney. No matter what my GOP colleagues say, and I appreciate the testimony of our witnesses today, there is no evidence that Hunter Biden has received any kind of official favoritism in this prosecution for being Joe Biden's son. On the contrary, there are more than 10 million Americans who have filed taxes but failed to pay them, the exact crime Hunter Biden is pleading guilty to. The vast majority of these cases are resolved administratively or through civil settlement. Indeed, every year the IRS and DOJ obtain convictions and sentences in fewer than 700 cases for tax crimes of any kind, a minuscule percentage. The fact that Hunter Biden faced a 4-year criminal probe involving dozens of agents and prosecutors from the IRS, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware, DOJ tax, demonstrates, to my mind at the very least, that he received no special treatment, but arguably selectively tougher treatment than the millions of the people who never face criminal investigation for doing the same thing. If my GOP colleagues think that the treatment of millions of tax scofflaws, or even the handful who face criminal prosecution like Hunter Biden, is too lenient, I invite them to join us Democrats in supporting the $80 billion in funding for the IRS that we passed in the Inflation Reduction Act last year. This money will enable the IRS to make long overdue improvements in customer service, but will also enable the agency to restore lost capabilities in enforcement to identify and prosecute tax cheats. But the very first thing House Republicans did this Congress was vote to rescind that funding while disparaging these future IRS employees who will do the same kind of work today's witnesses do. Senator Cruz called them Biden's shadow army. Senator Grassley said they will be going around ready to shoot some small business person in Iowa. Today, we get to witness MAGA Republicans take the side of IRS agents from the deep state against a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney and a rich guy exercising his Second Amendment rights, but now facing criminal gun charges and tax charges that they would call in any other circumstance purely technical. We are about to hear testimony from 2 IRS criminal investigators. They will describe their frustrations and disagreements with their supervisors, as well as with Mr. Weiss and his team of prosecutors, who they consider junior varsity and not up to snuff during the Trump administration generally. We will also hear about their confusion and profound misunderstandings about Mr. Weiss and how he reviewed the evidence and made the ultimate decision about charging Hunter Biden. A lot of the controversy here relates to the agent's failure to distinguish between...
And why isn't David Weiss there? Could be.
Special counsels and special lawyers, but we will clear that up today. The key point, Mr. Chairman, that America needs to understand is that the only political interference at play here is coming from Donald Trump and my Republican colleagues. We'll listen carefully to the testimony, and I thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
The ranking member yields back. I'd like to remind the members and the public that Section 6103 of the tax code makes taxpayer information confidential except in certain circumstances. One of those exceptions is the process the Ways and Means Committee used to receive testimony from these whistleblowers and report transcripts of their testimony to the full House of Representatives to make that information public. These whistleblowers have gone above and beyond to submit information to Congress in accordance with the law, and we are grateful to them for that. The witnesses can only testify to tax information that has already been released through proper procedures through the Ways and Means Committee. This means that in some instances they may have to decline to answer a question and instead submit additional information to the Ways and Means Committee at a later date through the appropriate process. They are each accompanied by counsel to address questions that arise on Section 6103 and are not present today to provide testimony or answer members' questions. I ask members to respect that process and requirements of Section 6103 and look forward to hearing what our courageous...
So all they're going to do is read? That's it?
Witnesses have to say. Further, due to the complex nature of the matter at hand, each of the witnesses shall have 10 minutes for their opening testimony.
So we're not going to learn anything today.
I would now like to introduce our witnesses. Mr. Joseph Ziegler is a special agent with the Internal Revenue Service, Criminal Investigation Division, specifically assigned to the International Tax and Financial Crimes Division. This is a group of 12 elite special agents who are subject matter experts in complex international tax and other related crimes. He started his career with the IRS in 2010 as a special agent and has developed and successfully completed a multitude of complex financial investigations. The types of investigations include money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, mail fraud, healthcare fraud, violations of the Bank Secrecy Act, income tax evasion, and income tax-related charges, such as identity theft and filing false claims for income tax refunds. Mr. Ziegler has won multiple performance awards throughout his career in recognition for his work. And Mr. Gary Shapley. Mr. Shapley is the Supervisory Special Agent of the International Tax and Financial Crimes Group. Mr. Shapley started his career with the IRS in July 2009. He was detailed to the Department of Justice's Tax Division from 2013 to 2018, investigating foreign financial institutions. He was also assigned to the Joint Terrorism Task Force, working as a task force officer at both the FBI Washington Field Office and the FBI Baltimore Field Office. Mr. Shapley was promoted to Supervisory Special Agent of the Elite ITFC Group in 2018. He also served as the Assistant Special Agent in charge of both the New York Field Office and the Chicago Field Office. I want to again thank both gentlemen for their willingness to come forward and share their testimony today for the members of this committee and for the American people. Pursuant to Committee Rule 9G, the witnesses will please stand and raise their right hands.
We'll skip the swearing in.
We appreciate you being here today and look forward to your testimony. Let me remind the witnesses that we have read your written statements and they will appear in full in the hearing record. Please press the button on your microphone in front of you so that it's on and the members can hear you. I recognize Mr. Ziegler to please begin his opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Comer, Chairman Smith, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, and members of the committee. Today, I sit here before you not as a hero or a victim, but as a whistleblower compelled to disclose the truth.
All right.
That said, in coming forward, I believe I'm risking my career, my reputation, and my casework outside of the investigation we are here to discuss.
That's true.
I ultimately made the decision to come forward after what I believe were multiple attempts at blowing the whistle in the Internal Revenue Service, at the Internal Revenue Service. No one should be above the law, regardless of your political affiliation.
Good.
I humbly view my role here today as providing the facts as I best understood them, and to let Congress and the administration and the public consider those facts and determine the best path forward. I recognize why I was present at the start of this investigation and was closely involved with the investigation for roughly 5 years. I'm just a part of the story. Others, including my colleague and Supervisor Gary Shapley, who is here with me today, have their own views and understandings of what took.
The guy sitting behind him here has an Ashley Babbitt shirt. Remember, Ashley Babbitt was a trained killer who tried to get into the House of Congress on January 6th and was shot as she tried to crawl through a broken window into the speaker's lobby. But he's got a t-shirt of her.
Place during this investigation. I've been an agent with the IRS since 2010. In 2007, I received my undergraduate degree from Ohio University, my MBA from John Carroll University. Prior to starting my career at the IRS, I worked at Ernst & Young as an external auditor. Throughout my career with the IRS, I have worked a variety of successful criminal tax and money laundering investigations. In 2018, I transitioned to being a part of the International Tax and Financial Crimes Group out of the Washington, D.C. field office. I was the lead IRS case agent on the Hunter Biden investigation. I've recently discovered that people are saying that I must be more credible because I'm a Democrat who happens to be married to a man. I'm no more credible than this man sitting next to me due to my sexual orientation or my political beliefs. The truth is, my credibility comes today from my job experience with the IRS and my intimate knowledge of the agency's standard and procedures.
Yes.
I was raised and have always strived to do what is right.
I had no idea that he was gay. Have not heard that anywhere. So I'm not sure where the... Yes, being a Democrat, okay. But he makes an excellent point. It's got nothing to do with his credibility.
Although I do have my supporters...
Just as any judge appointed by someone, except Trump, they're a judge.
Others have said that I am a traitor to the Democratic Party and that I am causing more division in our society. I implore you to consider that if you were in my position with the facts as I have stated them, ask yourself if you would be doing the exact same thing. I hope that I am an example to other LGBTQ people out there who are questioning doing the right thing at the potential cost of themselves and others. We should always do the right thing, no matter how painful the process might be. I kind of equate this to experience and feelings I encountered when coming out. It was honestly one of the hardest things I ever had to go through. I contemplated scenarios that would have been highly regrettable, but I did what is right, and I'm sitting here in front of you today. I would first like to take a minute to thank some people for their unfettered help and support. First off, God, for giving me the strength and courage to get through this process.
Okay.
My colleagues from the Hunter Biden in Northeast Ohio and Georgia. I don't live in the DC area. I had to fly here and have had to pay out of pocket for all my travel-related expenses in being a whistleblower.
Oh, God, really?
On that note, I would like to make another statement that I have not accepted a...
So whistleblowers usually get 10% of whatever they're blowing the whistle on, but there's no money here. So ideally, whistleblower laws should be amended so that he doesn't have to pay out of pocket for his attorney and for this trip. That's ridiculous.
Single payment from anyone for being a whistleblower. First, so Mr. Chairman, while I have my written statement as well as my testimony before the Ways and Means Committee, I would like to touch on briefly 7 specific matters. First, in a recent letter to Congress, Mr. Weiss stated that he had been granted ultimate authority over this matter, but then later stated in the same letter that his charging authority is geographically limited and that he would need a President Biden-appointed U.S. attorney to partner with him in charging the case. Yeah. Mr. Weiss stated that he was making all decisions necessary to preserve the integrity of the prosecution consistent with federal law, the principles of federal prosecution, and departmental regulations.
Yeah.
In the Criminal Tax Manual, Chapter 10, found on the DOJ website, Tax Division policy states that cases involving individuals who fail to file tax returns or pay a tax, but who also commit acts of evasion or obstruction should be charged as felonies to avoid inequitable treatment. In early August of 2022, federal prosecutors from the Department of Justice Tax Division drafted a 99-page memorandum. In so, they were recommending for approval felony and misdemeanor charges for the 2017, 18, and 19 tax years. That did not happen here, and I am not sure why. And as to the special agent...
Okay, so where is David Weiss? Has he skipped the country? Is he working for the Chinese? No, he's available. We didn't call him. Okay. But here's point number 1. I don't know.
On this case, I thought the felony charges were well supported. When considering the elements of felony tax case, under the criminal code, there are 2 key considerations: willfulness and tax due and owing. In the criminal context, willfulness is defined as voluntary, intentional violation of a known legal duty.
Okay.
The tax loss is the monetary loss to the government. In early 2020, Hunter Biden's unfiled and delinquent tax returns were being prepared, which included his 2018 tax return. During the 2020 time.
I'm not an attorney, but I have played one on TV. This could be explained, and I'm not 100% sure on this, but often as is the case in 99% of prosecutions of tax law, 99 point whatever percent, people agree to plead guilty to something. If it's prosecuted, people agree to plead guilty to a lesser charge in order to avoid having to go through and the government having to pay for the court costs of an extended trial. And that's entirely possible. That could have happened in this case. That David Weiss could have gone to Hunter Biden's attorney and said, hey, we're going to charge you with a felony. Unless you plead guilty, we'll make it misdemeanors. And that happens all the time. Again, not an attorney, but according to what I've read and whatnot. But okay. And again, he doesn't know why it didn't happen. And where is David Weiss to explain why it didn't happen?
Period. By Hunter Biden's own account, he was sober, newly married, and writing his memoir. Hunter Biden's accountants requested that he sign a representation letter stating that all the deductions were for business purposes and were being reported appropriately. Statements Hunter Biden made in his book completely contradicted what he was deducting as business deductions on his 2018 return. While writing his memoir, Hunter stated, I holed up inside the chateau for the first 6 weeks and learned how to cook crack. Hunter Biden allegedly falsely claimed business deductions for payments made to the Chateau Marmont, a hotel room for his supposed drug dealer, sex club memberships, falsely referenced on the wire as a golf membership, hotels he was blacklisted from, and a Columbia University tuition payment.
Oh my God, I want to be cool enough at some point to be blacklisted from some hotels. Not hotel. Hotels. Hunter Biden's a jerk face, but he's pretty damn cool. He's one of them bad boys. I bet he has a leather jacket.
For his adult daughter. All of these items were used to support willfulness.
Hold on. What are we talking about?
Sex club memberships.
Yeah.
Falsely referenced on the wire as a golf membership. Hotels he was blacklisted from, and a Columbia University tuition.
How do I even find a sex club? What is it? Sounds kind of cool.
Payment.
I'm on the waiting list for a tennis club. Does that sex club? All of these things, like nobody ever offers me cocaine. I wish I was that cool.
For his adult daughter. All of these items were used to support willfulness.
Well, I do want to hear what's going on with the adult. I keep pausing at the wrong place. My apologies. I just want to be, I so want to be cool. Or at least have a friend. Go ahead.
Sex club memberships.
Yes.
Falsely referenced on the wire as a golf membership.
Yes.
Hotels he was blacklisted from, and a Columbia University tuition payment for his adult daughter.
Okay.
All of these items were used to support willfulness, the willfulness element for felony tax.
Right, as opposed to the Trump company, which would pay for tuition for people and not report it as payment to the individual so that they could circumvent the taxes completely and use it as a business write-off. They were found guilty on all 9 counts. That's Donald Trump's company. But okay, yeah.
Tax evasion. These false deductions claim
the CFO of the Trump company is in jail because of the 9 counts. But okay.
By Hunter Biden caused a false return to be prepared that underreported his total income by approximately $267,000 and a loss to the U.S. Treasury of $106,000.
Okay.
Second, with respect to the
which he's paid, yeah.
2014 tax year, Hunter Biden.
Oh, I don't know if this goes back as far as 2014, which is beyond the statute of limitations. That's one of the things people are upset about. But again, this was started under Trump.
Biden did not report any of the money he earned from Burisma for the 2014 tax year, which would have been a tax loss to the government of $124,000.
That's it?
According to my previous test.
Then Hunter didn't make anywhere near what the GOP has claimed he made. If the tax loss is only $104,000, that's $220, $250, somewhere in that range, even at the highest tax bracket. Which, by the way, Trump lowered. So Hunter should be thanking Trump.
Testimony, Hunter Biden did not report this income to the IRS or
Yep.
pay tax on this source of income.
Right.
There is nothing that I see in the public documents as to the Department of Justice's action against Hunter Biden that indicate that Hunter Biden will be required to pay tax on this bereavement income from 2014 or amend his 2014 tax return.
Yeah, that's correct. Roger Stone did tax evasion as well, and he is not in jail. But also he was given a pardon by Trump. Different matter, but anyway.
I would like to note that the plea agreement, when released, may provide a greater understanding. Third, I would like to make clear that the charging document for the District of Delaware.
Thank you. Once the plea agreement is released, we may know more. We don't know yet. Why are we even having this before the investigation is complete?
Where
This guy's okay. I like Joey Ziegler. I'm on his side.
Hunter Biden was charged with failure to timely pay his taxes for 2017 and 18 in excess of $100,000 for each tax year.
All right.
On Hunter Biden's 2017 and 18 tax returns, Hunter reported taxes owed of approximately $581,000 and $620,000 respectfully.
Look at this guy behind him. The Ashley Babbitt guy's like shaking his head. He paid $500,000 in tax. Oh, that bastard.
This tax amount in 2000.
I would be willing to bet that Ashley Babbitt guy does not pay federal taxes.
2018 would not have included the alleged additional tax due and owing from the filed false return of $106,000. Thus, as I read the public documents as the Department of Justice action against Hunter Biden, there's no.
This poor kid is so bored. Come on. How'd you spend your summer, Billy?
Nothing that indicates Hunter Biden will be required to amend his false tax return for 2018. A false tax return that includes improper deductions for prostitutes, sex clubs, and,
yes.
his adult children's tuition. Again,
Okay.
perhaps when the plea agreement is released, it may provide us with a greater understanding. Fourth,
I honestly would not even know where to find a prostitute. I just haven't noticed them.
the decision to bring felony.
Is that still a thing? Are there like areas of town where you can drive and they approach your vehicle and lean over and what do you do for $25? That sort of thing? I haven't seen it. I'm so uncool.
Counts against Hunter Biden was agreed to by.
Now, if you're looking for a good price on eggs, I'm your guy. I can hook you up with a coupon, but I don't know where to get a hooker.
Both
I assume there's an app.
Prosecutors and investigators. In the fall of 2021, I met with prosecutors assigned to the case, and we all agreed and decided which charges we are going to recommend in the prosecution report, which included felony counts related to 2014 and 18. In March of 2022, the prosecutors requested discovery from the investigative team.
Wait, when was
and
that?
presented the case.
Sorry, gotta go back.
Decided with greater understanding. Fourth, the decision to bring felony counts against Hunter Biden was agreed to by both prosecutors and investigators. In the fall of 2021, I met with prosecutors assigned to the case, and we all.
So this is under Biden now.
All agreed and decided which charges we are going to recommend in the prosecution report, which included felony.
Well, Spokane, yes. Obviously, Spokane is full of hookers, especially in Brown's Addiction. But I don't want to drive all the way to Spokane. I've got to believe there's somebody closer than that in the LA area. Someplace I can go and see prostitutes walking down the street. I just, honestly, I used to see it in Seattle. There was Aurora Avenue. I've been in LA since 2019. I just haven't noticed ladies walking the street. Nobody walks in LA.
Felony counts related to 2014 and 18. In March of 2022, the prosecutors requested discovery from the investigative team and presented the case to the DC U.S. Attorney's Office. In later meetings in early August of 2022, the assigned prosecutors, all four attorneys, agreed to recommend felony and misdemeanor charges for the 2017, 18, and 19 tax years, insofar as the Department of Justice Tax Division attorney sent an email about the process of bringing charges to include felony and misdemeanor tax charges in two separate districts, Delaware and Los Angeles. Less than a month later, Gary Shapley and I met with Mr. Weiss. he stated that he agreed with us regarding the 2014 and 2015 tax year misdemeanor and felony charges, but that this could somehow affect the later year misdemeanor and felony charges that he conveyed were stronger. Despite these facts...
Okay, so this lady here who's been staring off to the side, I'm assuming there's a television monitor and she's watching, she's been staring over to her left the entire time. She also has an Ashley Babbitt t-shirt.
The plea deal that is being discussed occurred. To this day, I do not have a reason why that occurred. From my perspective, this might not have been problematic had the investigation been handled in the ordinary course. Fifth, as I had previously testified...
Okay, so on point 4, I don't know.
...and is contained in my written testimony, I have outlined for you some instances in which assigned prosecutors did not appear to follow the normal investigative process, slow-walked the investigation, and put in place unnecessary approvals and roadblocks from effectively and efficiently investigating the case. A number of times we were not able to follow the facts. I am happy to respond to questions concerning these instances. Sixth, I will also note that while the...
I really hope there's questions here, but so far, no questions.
Impression has been conveyed.
Oh, you just arrived. Well, thank you. Can we start over, please, for the lady in the pink? Wow, some people.
By the U.S. Attorney...
I just have a general question. So, I'm at a tennis club in Pasadena this morning, and there's a tennis camp for the kids. Summer camp, come and hit some balls, tennis camp. And the camp apparently starts at 9 o'clock. Like 9:10, 9:15, the kids start rolling in. Is that normal for people? I just remember summer camp and hockey camp and stuff like that. Like, you were there on time. Or you were skating laps. Is that a normal thing? Just when your kids go to soccer camp or whatever, you just roll them in at whenever you get there, that's fine? No punishment whatsoever?
In Delaware, that he has similar powers to that of a special counsel in this case, free reign to do as needed. That was not the case. It appeared to me, based on what I experienced, that the U.S. Attorney in Delaware in our investigation was constantly hamstrung, limited, and marginalized by DOJ officials as well as other U.S. attorneys. I still think that a special counsel is necessary for this investigation.
Okay, but David Weiss has said that it's not. He's the lead attorney. He's the one with the ultimate authority, according to him. Bill Barr did not think that it was necessary. Trump's guy did not think it was necessary. But you, Joey Ziegler, an investigator, not knocking what you do, thank you for your service, you feel that a special counsel is necessary. By the way, a special counsel has already been appointed to investigate Joseph R. Biden.
To further handle ancillary investigations that are spun off and relate to Hunter Biden, but may not have venue in Delaware. Lastly, I would like to conclude again by encouraging Congress and the administration to consider establishing an official channel for federal investigators to pull the emergency cord and raise the issue of the appointment of a special counsel for consideration by senior officials. I do not want my colleagues at the IRS, FBI, and other federal law enforcement agencies to go through my frustrating journey and that of our team. I believe such a path will strengthen the public's confidence in their institutions and their fair and equal treatment of all Americans under the law. Thank you, and I look forward to the questions.
So I think that final declaration was a plea to establish an emergency ripcord for appointing a special prosecutor in cases like this. I don't know if he was specifically referring to this or that there should be some sort of process so that nobody else has to go through what he's gone through. And I'm with him on that, absolutely. If there was some sort of hot button that they could press and say, hey, we need immediate help on this, or a further investigation by an outside source, yeah, absolutely. I'm for it. I'm not against it. And so, by the way, was Ashley Babbitt guy. So, yeah, I think we can all agree on that. But there's nothing there in his testimony that is a smoking gun. Again, on points 1, 4, 5, and 7, it's I don't know. But this is what I think happened, and I don't know why it didn't happen. Okay, so we don't have those answers yet. We're not done with the investigation. Hunter Biden has yet to go in front of the judge, make his plea, and receive his sentence. We're not done. Why are we doing this?
Thank you very much.
All right, let's go on to Shapley here.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Shapley for his opening statement.
Okay.
Thank you for inviting me to testify here today. I want to thank every member and staffer on both sides of the aisle who work for the work you do to represent your constituents and hold government accountable. My name is Gary Shapley. I worked as a special agent for IRS criminal investigation for 14 years. I have risen to become a senior leader in the organization and currently supervise 12 elite agents in the International Tax and Financial Crimes Group.
Awesome.
I have worked directly with United States attorneys in multiple districts and have supervised or investigated cases in more than a dozen United States attorneys' offices across the country. I have led, planned, or executed undercover operations or search warrants in more than a dozen countries. I have investigated and managed some of the largest cases in the history of the agency, recovering more than $3.5 billion for the United States taxpayer.
Awesome.
In this country, we believe in the rule of law.
Awesome. And by the way, the GOP wants to cut this guy's job. $3.5 billion is what this guy has brought into us, the United States taxpayer. That pays for a lot of schools. That pays for a lot of roads and bridges and paper and all the other things that people need in this country. So this guy's awesome. I like him. I like him a lot. Let's see what he has to say. We already know what he's going to say. But this is who the IRS wants to cut because they're coming after you. Yeah, if you're a tax cheat, they're coming after you.
And that applies to everyone. There should not be a two-track justice system.
Now he's a supervisor. He's still with the IRS.
Depending on who you are and who you're connected to. Yet,
Yeah.
in this case, there was.
To whom you're connected. I'm just kidding. I like this guy. Let's move on.
Based on my experience, I'm here to tell you that the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office and Department of Justice handling the Hunter Biden tax investigation was very different from any other case in my 14 years at the IRS.
Oh.
At every stage, decisions were made that benefited the subject of this investigation. For example,
Decisions were made by the Trump-appointed U.S. attorney.
prosecutors concealed contents of Hunter Biden's laptop from investigators. DOJ slow-walked steps to include interviews, serving document requests, and executing search warrants. Warrants that were ready as early as April of 2020, but were delayed until after the November 2020 election and never.
Again, this was under Trump. This was Trump's Department of Justice, run by Bill Barr, a hand-picked, actually he wasn't hand-picked because he wrote a 19-page memo basically saying that the president should be the ultimate authority on everything, that the president doesn't get enough power already. That's what Bill Barr did in order to audition for the job as Attorney General. And Trump was like, yeah, let's put him in.
Pursued. Investigators were not allowed to follow up on WhatsApp messages from Hunter Biden's Apple iCloud backup, where he suggested he was sitting next to his father. Assistant United States Attorney,
which, by the way, there's no evidence of.
Leslie Wolf cited the optics.
In fact, Hunter Biden's attorney has come forward and said, look, while Hunter was using, he would say anything in order to get the money, in order to feed his habits at the sex golf club. I want to join a sex golf club.
Of executing a search warrant at President Biden's residence as a deciding factor for not allowing it, even though she agreed that probable cause existed. Prosecutors instructed investigators not to ask about the big guy or dad when conducting interviews.
That is weird. Everybody wants to know who the big guy was. There's one email on the laptop referencing 10% for the big guy, which, if the big guy is God, as he was referred to in my house growing up, because I'm Catholic, yeah, 10% of your earnings always go, it's a tithe to the church. But that was pretty standard. 10% of your earnings, Catholic Church. That's how it's done. And who's in charge of the Catholic Church? Why, the big guy, God. I don't know. Could be Biden too, Joe Biden. And it could just be Hunter keeping that money for himself, because that's the kind of guy Hunter is. But a cool guy. Yes. Would I want to hang out with Hunter? Hell yeah. that'd be a great night. I'd want to be in bed by 10, so I'd miss most of the fun. But would I say, hey, Hunter, can you pick me up at the airport at 10 o'clock on a Friday night? No. You do not want to depend on Hunter for anything.
The Biden transition team was tipped off about interviews the night before the investigation went over. A fact my FBI counterpart confirmed to this committee in a recent testimony.
Okay, so if that was the case, we should find out who tipped off Hunter Biden and his attorney and look forward to prosecuting them if necessary. So yes.
Where the result was that only one witness spoke to investigators that day. These are just some of the examples of how our investigation was stymied. I'm not here to support partisan agendas on either side.
But is there any evidence that Joe Biden was the one who tipped off Hunter Biden about that interview? Or interviews? None.
I'm here because our tax system relies on the American people having confidence it is administered fairly and equally for everyone, regardless of your last name or political connections.
Agreed.
If the handling of this case was inappropriate, it doesn't matter whether it happened under a Republican or Democrat administration. Whether you agree with my concerns about the unethical slow walking and preferential treatment in this case, you can be sure that my testimony is true and correct to the best of my ability.
Right. So he has major problems with DOJ officials in both administrations, but none of that is Joe Biden. But okay, sure, yeah. There are problems in the DOJ. We know that. There are problems in the FBI. We know that. Multiple investigations have revealed that. Changes are being made on a regular basis.
Unfortunately, the way this has already been handled by some members and the media has done immeasurable damage to future would-be whistleblowers. I have been attacked as incompetent and falsely accused of being a liar, a leaker, or both, all by people who know nothing about me or the facts of this case. Some question if I should even be called a whistleblower, suggesting that my disclosures are not legally protected merely because they don't like what I'm saying. We've seen this shoe on the other foot before, and some Republicans have made the same error, so there's plenty of blame for both sides.
Okay.
The cycle of villainizing or canonizing government employees who report what they believe is wrongdoing has to stop.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, the judges agree wholeheartedly.
When I first started noticing deviations from the normal investigative process around June 2020, I did not...
He's an actual whistleblower, but the Republicans in this committee have had a stream of people who aren't whistleblowers. Just have negative things to say.
...run to Congress to air grievances. Instead, I documented my concerns and made internal protected disclosures to my chain of command. I tried to give the prosecutors the benefit of the doubt for a very long time. After our investigation had largely concluded by the end of 2021, the IRS recommended charging Hunter Biden with multiple felonies and several misdemeanors for the tax years of 2014 through 2019. The Delaware Assistant United States Attorneys and Tax Division Trial Attorneys supported charging the felonies and misdemeanors listed in Exhibit 2 of my interview transcripts on page 44.
Okay, who is this Mr. Meaner, and why isn't he there?
445, which were officially referred to Department of Justice Tax Division in February of 2022. This case was presented to the Washington, D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office in or around March 2022. In April 2022, in a hearing, Attorney General Garland was asked how the American people could be confident the administration was conducting a serious investigation into the president's own son. Attorney General Garland responded by saying, because we put the investigation in the hands of a Trump appointee. He led Congress to believe the case was insulated from improper political influence because all decisions were being made exclusively by Delaware United States Attorney David Weiss, but that was not true. The Justice Department allowed the president's political appointees to weigh in on whether to charge the president's son. After United States Attorney for D.C., Matthew Graves, appointed by President Biden, refused to bring charges in March 2022, I watched United States Attorney Weiss tell a room full of senior FBI and IRS senior leaders on October 7, 2022, that he was not the deciding person on whether charges were filed. That was my red line. I had already seen a pattern of preferential treatment and obstruction. Now, United States Weiss was
Yeah, and there have been at least 6 IRS agents who've come forward, or perhaps other officials, and said, yeah, I heard that too. David Weiss has come forward and written letters twice to Congress saying, and that's not what I meant, this is what I meant. I did have the ultimate authority here.
admitting that
And we don't know what the question was. We don't know what he said afterwards. There's no transcript available. But this is what Gary Shapley believes that he heard.
what the American people believed based on Attorney General's sworn statement was false. I can no longer stay silent. In November of 2022, the statute of limitations was set to expire for the 2014 and 2015 charges in D.C., which included the 2014 felonies for the attempt to evade or defeat tax and fraud or false statement regarding bereavement income earned by Hunter Biden in those years. The statute of limitations had been extended through a tolling agreement with Hunter Biden's defense counsel, and they were willing to extend it past November 2022. Weiss allowed those to expire. Prosecutors presented the 2017, 2018, and 2019.
Oh, okay, so Weiss knows why that happened. Where is Weiss? Why has he not been called in, which he would volunteer to come in for? Oh, and by the way, the government would pay for his trip. Or just subpoena him if he's not being cooperative. You know, Trump's guy. This is so pointless.
Criminal tax charges to the Central District of California.
So this is happening now, and it'll be all the news on Fox News, and President Trump will tweet about it or whatever. And then when we see the actual charging documents, when this goes to before the judge next week, this all may be made completely crystal clear. We don't know. But anyway, let's...
California around September of 2022, only after President Biden's nominee, Martin Estrada, was confirmed. In January of this year, I learned Estrada had declined to bring the charges. For all intents and purposes, the case was dead with the exception of one gun charge that could be brought in Delaware. And yet, when Senator Chuck Grassley asked Attorney General Garland about the case in March 2023, Garland testified, the United States Attorney has been advised he has full authority to make those referrals you're talking about or to bring cases in other districts if he needs to do that. He has been
at the risk of being charged with a crime, is what Merrick Garland said. If you lie to Congress, you go to jail. That is what happened to Trump's attorney. One of many Trump's people to end up in jail, who was then later pardoned. But this Michael Cohen was not pardoned by Trump because he flipped on Trump and testified in front of Congress. This is what Trump is like. I lied for him. Roger Stone also
advised that he should get anything he needs. After the October 7 Red Line meeting, there was no way to reconcile United States Attorney Weiss's statement, his office's actions with Attorney General Garland's public testimony. I am 100% certain of what Delaware U.S. Attorney...
Well, there is a way to align it, and we don't know yet, as your compatriot just said several times.
Attorney's office did in seeking approval from political appointees in D.C. and California. The New York Times reported that it has independently confirmed the charges being presented in decline in California. Plenty of other witnesses are familiar with these facts, in addition to those who witnessed U.S. Attorney Weiss's private admission. I encourage them to step forward and tell the truth about what happened and what they heard. Let me be clear, although these facts contradict Attorney General Garland's testimony and raise serious questions for you to investigate, I have never claimed to have evidence that Attorney General Garland knowingly lied to Congress.
Okay. There it is then.
Whether Attorney General Garland knew his testimony was false is for you and the Inspector Generals to determine, not me. The same is true for United States Attorney Weiss's 3 letters to Congress since June 2023. It is for others to investigate and determine whether those letters contain knowingly false statements.
Yes.
However, it's clear that United States Attorney Weiss's story to the American public has evolved. He's gone from unequivocally echoing Attorney General Garland to just 1 month later corroborating the disclosures we made about limits on his authority. Weiss first said he can charge anywhere, and then admitted he's geographically limited.
Right, but that he could, if he wanted to, ask for charging cooperation in any other district.
To go beyond those limits, Weiss later admitted he had to partner or get special authority. Garland said...
Right. Which he never asked for. He was not denied. For a while there, the thing was, oh, he was denied. He asked for this. He asked for special authority. He asked for a special prosecuting attorney. And he's denied that any of those things happened.
Weiss has authority. United States Attorney Weiss said he's been assured he would get authority. If he never requested or denied special authority from Attorney General Garland, as he told us on October 7, the American public deserves to hear why he allowed 2014 and 2015 D.C. charges to expire.
And we may find out soon.
No number of carefully worded denials or evolving half-truths can overshadow this stark fact. United States
Okay, where is he?
Attorney Weiss and Attorney General Garland will each be sitting before these committees one day. They will have to admit that despite all their obfuscation, the absolute fact is that this case was presented to two presidentially appointed U.S. attorneys in D.C. and California. That no charges were brought in those districts tells you everything that you need to know. I don't claim to be privy to United States Attorney Weiss or Attorney General Garland's communications, but United States Attorney Weiss told us that he was not the deciding person, that he had requested and was denied special authority after D.C. declined charges, and that if California declines, he will have to request special authorities again. I understood the gravity of those admissions.
And Weiss has unequivocally stated that he did not request special authority.
Whether full responsibility lies with United States Attorney Weiss or Attorney General Garland is for Congress, the Inspector Generals, and ultimately the public to decide.
Right, and he could go to Hunter Biden's attorneys, and Hunter Biden's attorneys say, well, there's no way we're pleading. Absolutely, we're not going to do it. Okay, well, this is what we could charge you with, so you better plead. I'll tell you what I can do. I can do 2 misdemeanors. How about that? And make sure that all the taxes are paid. Oh, the taxes aren't paid? Okay, all right, well, then let's get this done with, because that's standard operating procedure.
When I decided after October 7th to come forward and began researching whistleblower attorneys, I wanted to abide by the law in every way as I navigated the complex taxpayer privacy and grand jury secrecy statutes. I carefully followed the whistleblower process to the letter with the advice of counsel at every step.
Good.
I am fortunate to be represented by Mark Lytle, a federal prosecutor for 25 years, including 5 years with the Department of Justice Tax Division. I'm also grateful for Empower Oversight, a nonprofit whistleblower group whose president, Tristan Levitt, was previously nominated by President Biden to the Merit Systems Protection Board and unanimously confirmed by the United States Senate.
Good.
While some have tried to paint me with a partisan brush because this charitable organization employs some former staffers to GOP members on Capitol Hill, their expertise developed working for the patron saint and whistleblower, Senator Chuck Grassley, has been invaluable. Meanwhile, the Biden family attorneys appear to be representing Hunter Biden, President Biden, and the Department of Justice, and they are not working for free. It has been reported in public sources that there is a large fund paying for legal fees for Biden family attorneys. The source of those funds is unknown. They have virtually unlimited resources to pursue their agenda, while my motives are questioned simply for finding competent representation from a small nonprofit that helps whistleblowers.
That's not really germane, but okay. But yeah, but you don't have to disclose who pays for your attorneys. That's not how it works. Unless that's paid through a political action committee or not a super PAC, though. Anyway.
Such as Empower Oversight and Whistleblower Aid are the only path to ensure whistleblowers like me are heard and receive competent advice.
Good.
My intention was not to be your sole source of information, and I implore you to take the necessary steps to obtain as much evidence as possible from as many sources as possible to be able to fully inform your conclusions. I'm confident that after you have done that, both sides will find serious...
Oh, sweetie. They've already made their conclusions.
Serious issues with the Hunter Biden investigation that close...
I guess he wasn't in the room when Comey came out and said this, and this, and this is what we know, and Biden is the most corrupt president in history. He just wasn't here for that?
Closely aligned with my testimony. No matter your party, I am not your opposition. I am here with information for you to examine, investigate, and determine whether more action is warranted on your part.
Wow.
I am on your team, whether we agree on every politically sensitive issue or not. There is no benefit for me blowing the whistle on this case, absolutely none. I have no book deal, and the only money that goes into my bank account every 2 weeks is from my employment for the federal government. I am still a supervisor leading a group of 12 fantastic agents working complex international investigations. Unfortunately, to this day, my immediate supervisors are retaliating against me for making protected disclosures.
And that has to stop.
Even last fall, Biden family attorneys attacked investigators in the pages of the Washington Post and threatened the prosecutors with career suicide if they brought charges against the president's son. Then one of the Biden family attorneys sends to the press a 10-page error-filled letter. It attacked me with innuendo, false statements, and baseless speculation that I had leaked information to the Washington Post. These statements by Biden family attorneys are false. In conclusion, the American people for whom this body works, I implore you to look at the facts.
Okay, but those attorneys do not represent Joe Biden. That's why we're here today. Again, this is a private citizen. Why we're having hearings about Hunter Biden, I don't know. And why we don't have the actual guy involved. Where's Hunter? Why didn't they call Hunter in to testify? Why haven't they called David Weiss, the guy prosecuting Hunter, in to testify? And why are we waiting until the case is resolved? Why are we waiting until the investigation is over?
Not agenda-laced statements from either side of the aisle. I am the average American citizen who worries about how I will send my kids to college and if I'll ever have enough money to retire, just like most people watching this today. I am the first person in my family to go to college.
I would advise him to write a book. It will do well.
It was not an Ivy League school, and I don't have a network of rich and powerful friends to help me weather the storms of retaliation and character assassination.
But do you belong to a sex golf club?
I am putting myself at risk for the American people who support me and for those who do not. At the end of the day, I'm just a small-town kid from Norwich, New York, who worked hard to get where I am and will never compromise my integrity.
Good for
I
you.
will never forget who I am, where I come from, or all the people in my life who have made me who I am today. Thank you all for your time.
Little pink houses
Thank you both for those
you and
excellent
me.
opening statements. We'll now begin the questioning phase, and I'll begin.
Okay. Oh, there are questions. Fantastic. By the way, there's an example of how someone says something and someone else misunderstands what they said. Happens all the time. Good. Questions. Here we go.
We'll start with Mr. Ziegler. Here on the committee, we focused on following the evidence, specifically the money trail through bank records and suspicious activity reports. And I want to discuss with you specific payments made to Hunter Biden and the Biden family. Democrats and the left-wing media are also saying there's no evidence. Well, let's get into the evidence, Mr. Ziegler. I want to direct you to pages 99 and 100 of your transcript. How much money did Hunter Biden and his associates receive from the Romanian company you identified?
So that amount would be from Romania. So the approximate total transfers from the Romania company would have been $3.1 million to everyone.
$3.1 million. How much did Hunter Biden and his business associates receive from State Energy HK Limited through the Robinson Walker LLC?
So total transfers from State Energy HK to Rob Walker was $3 million.
$3 million. Was there a $100,000 payment from CEFC Infrastructure to Owasco PC, Hunter Biden's professional corporation?
Yes, Chairman.
Approximately how much was transferred to Hunter Biden and his business associates through Hudson West 3?
So the total transfers from Hudson West 3 to everyone was $3.7 million.
$3.7 million. How much money did Hunter Biden and his business associates receive from the Ukrainian company Burisma?
Burisma paid to everyone involved $6.5 million.
$6.5 million. Burisma also paid Blue Star Strategies and a law firm hundreds of thousands of dollars, bringing the total Burisma payments to over $7 million. Is that correct?
That is correct, $7.3 million.
$7.3 million. Between 2014 and 2019, this brings the total amount of foreign income streams received to approximately $17 million, correct?
That is correct.
What was the purpose of analyzing money from foreign sources, and do you have documents to support your findings?
So for the purpose of documenting the foreign sources is as a part of a normal international tax investigation, we have to figure out where the money's coming from. You have to follow the money trail. And as a part of that process, we have to follow different transactions, identify different foreign entities that might be paying a person, and then we go and get those records.
All right.
Okay.
And hopefully you can provide that to the committee.
So yeah, Any records regarding those transactions, we
love evidence on this side of the aisle. On page 80 of your transcript, you identified other Biden family members who received relevant payments to your investigation, such as the grandchildren. Can you explain why you wanted to interview them?
So as a part of the investigation, you want to interview people who might have received money, people who might have had...
Christopher, we've been broadcasting for an hour 15, but we're well behind real time. I'm not even sure where we are.
Deductions that were deducted on the tax return. So there's a multitude of reasons why you would want to talk to family members.
By the way, this is not just money going to Hunter Biden. All these $17 million. That's not okay. But anyway, Comer's kind of making it sound like that money is all going to Hunter Biden. It is not.
Is it common for grandchildren to receive money from foreign nationals and significant business wires?
So I don't know the reason, or I don't know what's behind any of these payments that might have been made to specific family members, but I can just speak to what was paid, what was in our.
I like this guy. He's like, I don't know. All I can do is give you the numbers, but I don't know why. Okay. Comer's trying to make it seem like, oh, this never happens. No, it happens.
Transcript.
Thank you. I would invite the media here today to review the committee's bank records memorandum, which closely matches the IRS figures. We will have a supplemental memorandum discussing payments from the Ukraine, Russia, and other sources very soon based on bank records we've recently received but haven't disclosed yet.
Again, no crime yet. Thank you, Keith, for pointing that out. Still no connection to Joe Biden. Crimes, yes, for Hunter Biden not reporting that income. Then yeah, absolutely. That is a crime. Recommendations were made that Hunter Biden been prosecuted. He was. It still is. It's not done yet. But yeah. And I like that Mr. Ziegler's like, I don't know. I like that.
Sir, you've confirmed for me what I've been saying all along. The committee has accomplished in 5 months what it took the Department of Justice 5 years to figure out. Mr. Shapley, I want to turn to President Biden. You've stated to CBS Evening News that there were certain investigative steps you were not allowed to take that could have led to President Biden. Can you tell us what investigative steps related to President Biden that you wanted to take but you couldn't?
So there were multiple instances in this investigation where there were references to the father of the subject, President Biden, and in the course of any normal investigation, when the subject's father is somehow related to the finances of the subject, that in the normal course of any investigation, we would have to go and get that information to properly vet the financial flows of money in that investigation to determine what we end up charging.
Mm-hmm. There was a tweet or a message in the laptop from Hunter Biden to Kevin Dong, who was with CEFC. And it said, quote, "The Bidens are the best I know at doing exactly what the chairman wants from this partnership." Now, the chairman he's referring to is Chairman Yi of CEFC. Is that correct?
In that stream, yes. I believe so, yes.
That's a Chinese energy company, by the way, if they haven't said that, CEFC.
So
the same company who paid the whistleblower who's on the lam, they were paying him a bunch of money. But for whatever reason, they're not investigating that whistleblower who's been charged by the DOJ with 8 felonies. They're going after the president's kid.
What? Can you tell me what the Bidens are
there it is, right there.
referring to as Chairman?
I am tired of this, Kevin. Agreed. I don't know what this is, don't know what this text is about, but yes, Kevin is goddamn tired of all of this. Thank you. I like this whistleblower even more. Thank you for finally getting the word out there. That's the truth, ladies and gentlemen, and it's from Hunter. I'm tired of it too, Hunter.
Ye of CE.
Why doesn't Hunter Biden just plead guilty already and get the? Oh, he did. Okay, but we're still. All right.
FC, is that correct?
In in that stream,
Yes.
I believe so, yes.
So can you tell me what the Bidens are best at? Do you understand what he would have meant by that? I mean, this is a Chinese company, and I think the ranking member referred to it with Gal Luft. It's the same entity that paid Gal Luft
Right.
the money that
The fugitive. Yep, that is
he
correct.
got indicted for being an unregistered foreign agent, I believe was
Right.
the charge. But
Yes.
this is another solicitation from Hunter Biden, and he refers to the Bidens plural, and they're best at doing.
The Bidens, apostrophe, are the best, I know, at doing exactly what the chairman wants from this partnership. Is this coming from Hunter? I can make $5 million in salary at any law firm in America. Yeah, that's from Hunter Biden. The Bidens are the best I know. The Bidens, okay.
What the chairman wants. I think that's very concerning to our committee because this is a Chinese Communist Party owned entity.
Right, and Biden, Joe, just sanctioned 31 Chinese Communist Party military-connected companies. Just sanctioned them. But anyway, apparently they didn't pay? Oh, no, they did pay. Oh, I don't, God.
This is of concern to our national security.
This information that we're seeing is from WhatsApp. Not in this format. It comes in an HTML format. So they subpoenaed WhatsApp. WhatsApp sent in Hunter Biden's text messages over WhatsApp. So that's where this comes from. If it's the same as the other information that's come out of WhatsApp.
And I didn't know, in closing, if you had any information with respect to that comment there.
You know, with respect to the WhatsApp messages, it was something we clearly needed to follow up on, and that was really one of the major deviations from, in this case, is that investigators asked, and Special Agent Ziegler asked to follow, to take some investigative steps to review that, and it just simply wasn't supported by the prosecutors. So further delving into what that means, I just simply can't do.
Well, I can promise you we're not going to stop on this committee until we understand.
Again, there's nothing wrong with Shapley. He's like, I don't know. It's not my job. And that is correct.
What he fully meant by that message to a Chinese Communist Party official.
Mr. Chairman, can I say something about that?
Yes, please.
So, thank you for that question. There was a long WhatsApp message contained in that was only a portion of it. So what we can do, or what we can go back, is we can turn that over to the House Ways and Means Committee. They can vote to release it, and then that information can be available for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I now yield to Ranking Member Askins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank both the witnesses for their testimony and for appearing with us today. It seems to me that a lot of your testimony has been about the problem of prosecutorial discretion and the traditional tug of war between investigators who characteristically want to charge as many offenses as they've come across.
Jamie Raskin is an attorney.
And prosecutors who are more attuned to the rigors of the courtroom and the complexity of forensic evidence. And I admit, as a former state assistant attorney general, I see it more from the prosecutor standpoint than the investigator's standpoint. But Mr. Shapley, would you concede that there are lots of crimes that are identified by investigators that are not actually charged by prosecutors routinely?
Yes.
I'll give you an example. In the recent prosecution, the recent indictment of Donald Trump for retaining government documents that he unlawfully took, according to the indictment, he was charged only with possessing those documents that were recovered after the August 2022 search warrant, but he had hundreds of documents that were recovered before that, 15 boxes that were recovered in January and then after the grand jury subpoena in June. But the prosecutors decided not to charge any of those as offenses. They said they were going to take the most egregious offenses and charge those. Is that unfamiliar to you, that kind of decision by a prosecutor?
So I can't speak to anything related to the Trump investigation, but The issue here with this case is that it wasn't just investigators that agreed with these charges. In Exhibit 2 in my testimony, it clearly shows a prosecution recommendation report where it says right in the document that the Assistant United States Attorneys and Department of Justice Tax Division.
He's not answering the question, so hopefully Jamie will be able to follow up with that.
Agreed with those recommended charges,
right.
And
okay.
And then again, and as Special Agent Ziegler alluded to in late 2022.
And they were recommended to whom?
To Department of Justice. So the prosecution recommendation report is referred to the Department of Justice Tax Division
right.
for approval, discretion, or declination.
Right. So they have the discretion, and sometimes they don't prosecute on specific recommendations. Is that correct?
Right, but then it all went to the U.S. Attorney in Delaware, right?
So that's not entirely accurate because, Department of Justice Tax Division up through March 16th of 2023 had not yet approved, provided discretion, or declined charges. So U.S. Attorney Weiss had no authority to charge any of those charges without the Department of Justice Tax Division's approval beforehand.
And I'd like to say something about this real quick. So
Well,
Okay.
let me come back to you because I only have a limited amount of time and I've got questions for you. But in fact, Mr. Ziegler, you say that
Hold on a second.
Hunter Biden's unpaid taxes.
What did we just see?
Beforehand.
There was a laptop there with some words on it.
And
almost looked like a teleprompter.
I'd like to
What
say
was that?
something about this
Are they maybe they're getting real-time transcription so they can
real
read it?
quick.
In case...
So
Let me come back to you because I only have a
no, that's just his document. Okay, so that's the lawyer's computer, I believe, and he's just got maybe the opening statement or something like that up there. Okay, nothing unusual.
limited amount of time and I've got questions for you. But in fact, Mr. Ziegler, you say that Hunter Biden's unpaid taxes were around $2 million, and he's now paid those back taxes, I understand it, and he's been criminally charged for not paying taxes. Will you just explain how people can be charged for not paying taxes even after they've made amends and gone forward to pay them?
So under the statute, when someone fails to timely pay their taxes, usually due April 15th, once that date occurs, they have a known tax liability and they fail to pay it, the crime has already been committed. The fact that they paid the taxes after, that's a mitigating factor that the judge can use their discretion at sentencing. But I would like to make one reference that this does not include the over $100,000 in additional tax due and owing that was not charged related.
No, you made yourself clear you thought there were additional charges that were laid on the table and not pursued by U.S. Attorney Weiss, the Trump appointee. But Mr. Shapley, you testified that the critical moment in your decision to blow the whistle in the Hunter Biden investigation was the October 7th meeting 2022 that you had with U.S. Attorney David Weiss. And up until that point, you say you were willing to chalk up the differences with prosecutors to the typical, quote, investigator versus prosecutor type thing, which is what I think this is all about. But you say on page 28 of your transcript, if I wasn't in the October 7th meeting, my red line might not have been crossed, and I think you reaffirmed that today. Now, as I understand it, what crossed your red line is that in that meeting, you understood Mr. Weiss to be saying that he did not have the authority to bring charges in D.C. or California without the approval of the U.S. attorneys for those districts. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, but in a letter that he sent to Chairman Jordan in June, U.S. Attorney Weiss stated, and I quote, "I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges." He went on to explain that in considering charges in districts outside Delaware, usual DOJ practice would be, quote, to contact the U.S. Attorney's Office for the district in question and determine whether it wants to partner on the case. Now, if that office declined, he would request and be granted authority to bring the charge himself under, quote, special attorney status from the Attorney General pursuant to 28 U.S.C. Section 515. Now, to try to clear this up, Mr. Shapley, let's go back to March 2022, when, as you explained on page 153 of the transcript, the U.S. Attorney for D.C. declined to partner with Mr. Weiss to bring the 2014 and 2015 charges in D.C. After that decision by the U.S. Attorney for D.C., Mr. Weiss continued to discuss those charges with all of you. In fact,
why are we paying someone to stand here and hold this poster board? Why are we paying for this poster board?
Mr. Ziegler, on page 39 of your transcript, you described how in September 2022, you had a meeting in which U.S. Attorney Weiss expressed some concerns about those charges, including that in 2015, Hunter Biden was in the throes of his drug addiction after the death of his brother. And in that meeting, Mr. Weiss tells you, and I quote, "I'm still weighing it." Now, Mr. Ziegler, in September 2022, Mr. Weiss was telling you that he was the one weighing whether to bring the 2014 and 2015 charges. Isn't that correct?
That is correct.
Now, coming back to the October 7th, 2022 meeting, Mr. Shapley, according to you on page 155, Mr. Weiss said that, quote, he decided not to charge 2014 and 2015. It seems to me this October 7th, 2022 meeting, which you've described as a red line, is just a misunderstanding. That after the U.S. Attorney in D.C.
That's what I've been saying all along. So the two witnesses sitting there disagree as to what Weiss said at the October 7th meeting. So, yeah, beautiful. Classic.
declined to partner on the 14 and 15 charges, Mr. Weiss took a good hard look at those charges himself and ultimately decided not to charge them and therefore not to seek the special attorney status. He may have been right about that. He may have been wrong, as you guys make your case for, but it was his decision. Isn't that right, Mr. Shapley?
No, that's not supported by the facts.
Really? Well, which facts is it not supported by?
His own admissions in the October 7th, 2022 meeting.
Okay, which the guy sitting next to you said is not the case.
I documented contemporaneously, and if the only piece of...
But he contradicts what you're saying. Do you agree that? He doesn't agree with what you're saying about that meeting. Now, I wasn't at that October 7th, 2022 meeting, but while what was said at the meeting over 2.5 years ago may be a little ambiguous or unclear today, Mr. Weiss's letter to Chairman Jordan could not be more clear. He had, quote, ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file the charges. So,
okay, but I couldn't understand that. Can we put it on a poster board, please?
if there's any ambiguity, it's got to go to U.S. Attorney Weiss, Donald Trump's hand-picked U.S. Attorney for Delaware. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back and now recognize Chairman Smith.
Can I say something real quick on that? I have two things that I wanted to bring up. So there are a lot of different tax cases out there that include misdemeanors and felonies, and there's a lot of reasons why we charge the felony, we might charge the misdemeanor. But I want to be clear on this, that when you have a felony charge with a misdemeanor, that you have to charge the felony. And in this case, they did not charge that felony. And then there's one more point to this.
Hold on.
We had a meeting with felony, we might charge the misdemeanor. But I want to be clear on this, that when you have a felony charge with a misdemeanor, that you have to charge the felony. And in this case, they did not charge that felony. And then there's one more.
But we don't know that they didn't charge the felony. It may have been plea bargained away. We're not sure. Again, this hasn't gone in front of the judge for the. Okay. But I don't know where he's getting that information from either.
Point to this.
And he could be right. Could be absolutely right. He knows what he's doing. But he just disagreed with the guy sitting next to him, both whistleblowers.
We had a meeting with all four assigned prosecutors.
When you say you have to charge the felony, that is a Department of Justice rule, you're saying?
That is in their manual, that you have to charge the felony in order to avoid inequitable treatment of taxpayers.
No, but you're saying whether or not the evidence supports it?
That is a part of that is in that analysis, is whether the evidence, but that goes back to the point of that if the certain deductions that were taken,
Yeah, whether or not the evidence supports it. Well, that goes back to that does go back to the prosecuting attorney.
Deductions that were taken on the tax return, that's for you guys to decide whether the felony was there or not. But the point is that we're bringing...
That's for the U.S. Attorney to decide. And I'm afraid we're not going to be able to investigate every tax case in America.
Gentleman's time's expired. Now, Chair now recognizes Mr. Smith from Missouri.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shapley, Mr. Ziegler, I want
to... So that's in their manual, according to Joe. That's what they have to recommend being charged. I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know for sure. But what I'm understanding here is that the manual for the IRS investigators, that's in their manual, that they have to recommend the charging, but the U.S. Attorney is not held by the IRS manual. I'm not sure on that, but this is what I'm interpreting. This makes sense to me. I could be wrong.
to thank you both again for your testimony and your willingness to come forward and tell the truth for the American public. And I apologize of the behavior of some of our colleagues and how the press has treated you for doing what is right so the American people can see it. Mr. Shapley, included in the documents you provided to the Ways and Means Committee is a document labeled Exhibit 2 in the transcript of your testimony, which is a portion of a special agent report. This document is located following page 41 of the transcript, this one. What is this document, and what recommendations are made in this document?
Yes, so this is the prosecution recommendation report that IRS CI agents produce at the end of an investigation when they're going to recommend prosecution to the Department of Justice. This was authored by Special Agent Ziegler, and it's an incredibly robust document. There's several thousand pages because each of these the facts and the elements in this particular report, the elements of each violation show which piece of evidence meets that element. So in this report, it recommended felony charges for 2014, 2018, and 2019, and misdemeanor charges for 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018, and 2019. And it further shows that Special Agent Ziegler spoke with prosecutors and worked hand in hand with prosecutors while this was being drafted.
Okay, here's something weird. We won't go back. But on the poster board, it said that David Weiss's name was Davis C. Weiss. And I thought, have I been getting it wrong this entire time? It's not David Weiss, it's Davis Weiss? Apparently it's David. So the poster board was incorrect. I mean, on Wikipedia and Reuters and CNN and Fox News, it's David Weiss. Born David Charles Weiss, 1956. But anyway, the poster board was wrong. Why are we paying for that? Moving on.
And they clearly agreed that the elements of these violations were met, and they supported this document. And when it was sent to Department of Justice Tax Division for approval on February 25th, 2022.
Mr. Shapley, what level of confidence does the IRS need to have to recommend charges like the felony counts listed in this document?
So, I mean, each violation has each element listed in this report, and the evidence is shown underneath each of it. This report goes through internal departments at IRS, criminal investigation, and in addition to the prosecutors agreeing that the evidence supported charging felony counts, the senior leadership up to the Director of Field Operations, the IRS Criminal Investigation, also personally reviewed this report and approved it to be sent to Department of Justice Tax Division.
So were you surprised that on June 20th, 2023, prosecutors announced a plea agreement with Hunter Biden under which he would only plead guilty to violations of 2 misdemeanor charges?
So, you know, the guilty plea is outside of my control, but what I can say is it's not what an investigator thought, it's not what Special Agent Ziegler or I thought, that felony charges were proven in this case. The prosecutors again and again agreed with that assessment. And Attorney General, United States Attorney Weiss also agreed with these because he went to the DC U.S. Attorney to ask him to partner. You don't ask someone to partner with you if you don't yourself agree with those charges.
But I believe that David Davis C. Weiss says, no, that didn't happen. I didn't do that.
And when he got denied that, he requested special authority and was declined, as he said in the October 7th, 2022 meeting.
Okay, but in the recent letters, he's saying, no, that didn't happen.
Yeah, in the report that we just...
And the question is, why would he lie now? What motivation would David C. Weiss have for lying in written form, as opposed to what people heard in the October 7th meeting, even though the gentleman sitting right next to Mr. Shapley says something different?
highlighted as Exhibit 2, it states in there that even Leslie Wolf agreed with these charges moving forward,
Whoa.
the assistant
Leslie
prosecutor.
Wolf?
Mr. Ziegler, on page 32 of the transcript of your testimony, you discussed the need to interview Hunter Biden's adult children regarding certain deductions that you listed earlier of Hunter Biden included on his tax returns. You also testified that Assistant United States Attorney Leslie Wolf told you that you would get into hot water if interviewed the president's grandchildren. In other cases that you've worked over your career, have you ever had a prosecutor tell you that you couldn't interview a relevant witness?
So there are certain things that come into whether we talk to a witness or not. So if they're an attorney, if there's some special situation that might come up, that might cause caution to interviewing that witness, but I've never been told that we couldn't approach someone to interview them as a part of an investigation. Yeah, I mean, there's certain situations to where you have to do a further analysis of the information that you might get if they're, like I said, if they're an attorney. But yeah, so in this case, we needed to talk to witnesses related to things that were deducted on the tax return. And in this case, it was the adult children that we needed to talk to.
Then where is Leslie Wolf? Why is, you've had this information for a while now, Mr. Smith. Where is Leslie Wolf? Why hasn't she been subpoenaed in front of this committee for this meeting? We couldn't print the subpoena because we were busy with the poster boards?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see my time expired.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognize Mr. Kritzamorte from Illinois for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Shapley. Thank you, Mr. Ziegler, for your service to this country. Really appreciate you coming here and appearing in this capacity.
I know nothing about this gentleman.
First of all, Mr. Ziegler, I see at page 12 of your transcript, deposition transcript, you start laying out a series of concerns that you had with regard.
Except that he may in fact have dandruff. Something white all over his. Oh, it's probably the cocaine from the White House. He's the culprit.
To various people and different issues related to this investigation. You say, quote, I started this investigation in November 2018 after reviewing bank deposits. Then you later say career IRS staff were not initially supportive of starting the investigation. Of course, in November 2018, Joe Biden was not the president, correct?
Correct.
Joe Biden was not the president, correct.
And then at page 20, you lay out another concern. You had a concern about Bill Barr, Attorney General Bill Barr, consolidating these series of cases into the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware. At that point, you said, quote, what was the potential issue I saw with working the case in Delaware? We were working with a small U.S. Attorney's Office who might not have ever worked a case of this caliber. Now, of course, Bill Barr was appointed by Donald Trump, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Now, let me turn to another concern that you lay out in your testimony. You were concerned about the quality of the prosecutors. On page 14, you say, quote, the prosecutors were the JV squad, and they weren't up to the task of handling such a big case. Now, sir, U.S. Attorney Weiss was also appointed by Donald Trump, right?
So as far as the actual nomination and what went into why...
No, I'm not asking you why. I'm just saying USA Weiss was appointed by Donald Trump, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, another concern you lay out.
Well, we know that Trump only appoints the best people, so I'm not sure where Krishnamurthy is going with this.
In your deposition at page 21, you talk about your concerns about this investigation having been made overt, being publicized for the world to know. You said, quote, one of the first disagreements I recall between the IRS investigators and prosecutors was the idea of going public. Now, sir, this was in March, April 2019. Joe Biden was not the president then, was he?
So I don't recall the exact date of when he announced that he was going to run for presidency, but I know that...
That's not my question, sir. Joe Biden was not the president in March, April 2019, correct?
That is correct.
Now, Mr. Shapley, let me turn to you for a second here. You also raise a series of concerns in your deposition transcript. One is this. You said you were concerned about the complexities of the election cycle and potential delays that arose in connection with the election cycle. You said at page 23, and I remember there were always times where we were always on an impending election cycle. It was always the elections being brought up in early 2020. It was the presidential primaries. Now, sir, Joe Biden was not the president at that time either, was he?
I mean, the answer to your question is no, he was not, but I don't see where you referenced it in my, for me to
Page
follow
23.
along.
You're talking about how the election cycle is delaying decisions by the prosecution. And it turns out that the delay in the election cycle was happening at a time when Joe Biden was not the president.
I'm sorry, sir. That's in Special Agent Ziegler's transcript. That's why I couldn't find it.
So, Mr. Ziegler and you shared concerns about delays related to the election cycle, but at that time, Joe Biden was not the president.
I believe at that time he was the nominee for president.
But, well, he was not the president, was he?
I-
It's just a simple question, sir.
Can you rephrase what time period?
Joe Biden was not the president in the presidential primaries in 2020.
Correct, that is correct.
Sir, finally, Mr. Shapley, you said that warrants were ready as soon as April 2020 to begin searching for records, but actions weren't taken with regard to those warrants. Again, Joe Biden was not the president in April 2020, was he?
So I'm confused by your line of questioning. We're talking about an election to which now President Biden was a part of. So he didn't have to be the president to have election meddling.
No, but the question is this. Was he the president at that time in April 2020?
It's been asked and answered.
And what's the answer, sir?
The election.
The answer is yes or no?
Is no.
Thank you. Thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Chairman, may I finish?
Please, you may answer the question.
So, it's clear that he was not the president, but an election is for the purpose of electing a president. And Joe Biden at the time was a nominee for president of the United States. Therefore, the election clauses with DOJ policy took place and were in effect. And it wasn't until September 4th of 2020 that the Department of Justice Public Integrity said that we can no longer take any actions on that case. And as early as April to June of 2020.
In the background, somebody was commenting, that's Donald Trump's DOJ that made that decision. That Donald Trump's DOJ, and that is correct.
The Department of Justice, Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, was already invoking the election as a reason not to perform those search warrants.
Okay. That was Donald
and
Trump's
gentlemen's
DOJ.
time's expired. We've got a lot of questioners here. Chair now recognizes Mr. Jordan of Ohio.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last month, David Weiss sent me 2 letters. In the first letter on June 7th, he said, I have been granted ultimate authority over the matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges. The quote that the ranking member just put up. Later that same month, he sent me the second letter where he said, no, I don't. No, I don't have that charging authority. So June 7th, he says, I'm the boss. I can do whatever I darn well want, file it wherever I want. And then June 30th, he says, no, I can't. What happened in between those 2 events?
Oh, that's...
Your testimony went public. He goes, oh my goodness, I got to change my story because now the truth's coming out. And it sounds like in this investigation,
except that the story's not changed.
To me, Mr. Shapley, that the prosecutors and the investigators were in agreement for most of the investigation, and then we get to October of 2022. I see Mr. Ziegler nodding his head. And that meeting is where David Weiss told you something. Is that right, Mr. Shapley?
Yes.
What did he say? Can you put your mic on there? What did he say?
Yes, he told me he was not the deciding person on whether or not charges were filed. He told us that D.C. U.S. Attorney had declined to allow charges. He told us that he had requested special counsel authority from Maine DOJ and denied that authority.
And was denied.
That's correct.
Were you the only guy in that meeting?
I was not.
How many other people were there?
There were 7 total people, including me.
You and Mr. Weiss and 5 others, right?
That's correct.
And have any of them come forward and say what you just said is not true?
They have not.
No one has, right?
That is
no
correct.
one is disputed, refuted. No one said what you said is not true.
That's
and did
correct.
you memorial?
And has anyone come forward saying that what David Weiss has said is not true? No, they have not. They haven't come forward because they don't want to get involved in this, and I get that.
What took place in that meeting? Did you memorialize that?
Yes, I did. That day when I returned home from the Delaware U.S. Attorney's Office, I put it in an email to the 2 senior executives at my agency.
You put it in an email that day.
That's correct.
Contemporaneous when it happened. I got the email here. It's Exhibit 10 in your testimony when you were interviewed by the Ways and Means Committee, October 7th, Friday evening, 6:09 p.m. That email, right?
That's correct.
Sent to Mr. Walden and Mr. Batdorf. Who are those individuals?
Mike Batdorf is the Director of Field Operations for Southern Division of IRCI, and Darrell Walden was the Special Agent in charge of the Washington, D.C. Field Office.
These are your bosses, right?
That's correct.
Did Mr. Walden get back to you?
Yes, he did.
Remember what he said?
He said, "Thanks, Gary, you covered it all."
You covered it all. He didn't say, "Thanks, Gary, but you're wrong. That's not what happened." He affirmed what you said. You covered it all, and you laid it out. You spelled out just what you told me a few minutes ago, right?
That's correct.
What Mr. Weiss told you in that meeting.
Yes.
And when that goes public on June 22nd, last month, Mr. Weiss says, "Oh, I got to change my story. I better send a letter to the Judiciary Committee where he says, I stand by what I wrote, but I wish to expand. I wish to fix it."
Right?
And then he had to further go.
He didn't fix anything. The two letters don't contradict one another. It's a clarification.
Go further in July when he sent a letter to Senator Graham and said, to clarify again. They've changed their story. You guys haven't. What do you think happened? What do you think? Mr. Weiss was consistent with the investigators up until this October 7th meeting, and then he changed. What do you think happened, Mr. Shapley?
He doesn't know.
I don't know what happened internally
what kind
at
of
the Department of
question is that,
Justice.
Jim?
But what I can say is that the story has been changing from Department of Justice and U.S. Attorney Weiss, and I think the only person that's really had any documents that have been corroborated are my own.
Exactly. I think what happened. I think it's obvious. Anyone with common sense can see what happened because he said it in Mr. Graham's letter. He said, I had discussions with Maine Justice.
Yeah.
I had discussions with the folks, the Deputy Attorney General, the Attorney, whoever it was, I don't know, but he had discussions with the people at Maine Justice, and suddenly things change. And that all became evident on October 7th. And until October 7th, the investigators, to Mr. Raskin's point, the investigators and the prosecutors, they were...
But the investigation hasn't been finished, and he still has prosecutorial authority. So why... Now that it's been clarified, now that we know, no, he's got full prosecutor, it's his decision, why are we here?
An agreement. Here are the facts. Here's how we do it. Here's how we've always done it. We got the two best agents in the place on the case. Let's go. And then shazam, something changes.
Shazam.
And I think it's what Mr. Weiss conveyed to Senator Graham when he said, I had discussions with folks at Maine Justice. We don't know what were in those discussions.
No,
but
we don't.
it looks pretty obvious what happened.
What?
Looks pretty obvious. Initially, everyone was pounding their chest. David Weiss has complete authority. Now suddenly he doesn't.
No, he does.
He doesn't. Because you guys came forward and told the truth. I yield back.
But he does.
Chair now recognizes Mr. Lynch from Massachusetts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I wanted to thank the witnesses for their willingness to work with the committee, help us with our work. I am surprised, though, seems to be a new level of hypocrisy here. As a long-standing member of this committee, I think most of the members who have served a long time
Mr. Lynch is surprised that there's hypocrisy in Congress.
here know full well what political interference and what sweetheart deals look like. And I think context is very important. In 2017, we had a situation where former National Security Advisor and Trump campaign surrogate Michael Flynn was indicted. Indicted by a federal grand jury. He pled guilty twice. And he lied to FBI agents about his communications with the Russian government prior to the inauguration of President Trump. He was only national security advisor for 22 days. But my colleagues on the other side of the aisle had no interest, zero interest in looking into that case. And in response, the president at the time, President Trump, repeatedly and publicly attacked the case and the agents who brought it, including by claiming that Mr. Flynn was the victim of a quote, dirty, filthy cops at the top of the FBI, close quote. He also described the prosecution as a disgrace and claimed that those who investigated Mr. Flynn were guilty of treason. Those were public statements made by a sitting president attacking the FBI. And despite the fact that Mr. Flynn pleaded guilty twice to lying to the FBI, President Trump's Attorney General William Barr personally intervened in the case, and that led the Department of Justice to abruptly reverse course and have the case dismissed on grounds that a federal judge found dubious, to say the least. And that's a quote from the judge.
Yep.
In the case of longtime Trump associate and advisor Roger Stone, a federal jury found him guilty in 2019 of obstructing a congressional investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election.
Lied to Congress.
By lying to Congress.
Yes.
And witness tampering. In response, a sitting president, President Trump, immediately took to Twitter, attacking the Department of Justice and accusing them of employing a, quote, double standard and committing a, quote, miscarriage of justice. President Trump also publicly attacked the department's sentencing recommendation for Mr. Stone, leading senior officials to overrule the federal prosecutors who had investigated and brought the case. So this blatant political intervention, not complained of at all by my Republican colleagues at the time.
Yeah, but what is Joe Biden tweeting about this? That's what I want to know. He must be calling it a witch hunt and complaining about it and saying that the top of the FBI are filthy, dirty, rotten scum, right?
Caused those prosecutors, some of them, to resign or withdraw from the case. President Trump even congratulated former Attorney General Barr for interfering. That's what political intervention looks like, and we know it on this committee. And in the case of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort, who worked to elect a pro-Kremlin president in Ukraine and was convicted in 2018 of bank and tax fraud, ultimately pleading guilty to conspiracy against the United States and conspiracy to obstruct justice.
Pardoned by
President Trump deemed it, quote, a very sad day for our country.
And pardoned him.
And in terms of sweetheart deals, in December of 2020, at the end of his term, President Trump granted full pardons to his close allies, his pals, Flynn, Stone, and Manafort, allowing them to escape accountability for their numerous crimes. Now that is a sweetheart deal.
Sweetheart. This guy must be from, he's from Massachusetts. Sweetheart
Not
deal.
like Hunter Biden, who's pleading guilty.
Hunter. His name is Hunter.
The reputational damage and embarrassment to his family. The widely publicized facts of his drug addiction. And this was a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney that prosecuted this for 4 years.
Do you have a question, Stephen?
And President Biden did not seek to remove him, which normally happens when a new president comes into office. He has the full right to remove him. Never did so.
Yeah. Is there a question?
Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Timmons from South Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
He's gone.
I'm try to help simplify this for the American people.
Oh, good.
We are here today because our institutions are broken. The DOJ, the FBI, the IRS have transformed from a balanced apparatus of justice into the political weapon of the left, a process that I believe began during the Obama administration. They actively
All right, we got another one.
pursue individuals based on their ideological beliefs, specifically targeting Donald Trump, who pose a significant threat to the political left. Upon his election, the bureaucratic resistance didn't stop. Their hatred for Trump permeated throughout their work.
We got a deep state conspiracy theorist here. And he's been elected. South Carolina.
To cripple his administration almost every turn. And for the last 30 months, the DOJ, the FBI, and the IRS have worked to not only protect the criminal actions of the Biden family, but to continue persecuting President Trump.
Trump's DOJ. Trump, the guy who was going to drain the swamp?
Some describe this as a two-tier system of justice, but what it really is, it's a system deliberately and systematically prosecuting individuals within the Trump orbit due to their hatred.
Criminals, yeah.
For President Trump. Simultaneously, they cover up the crimes.
But also found guilty by a jury of their peers unanimously of committing fraud against the United States. So there's that.
The current president and members of his family.
Any one of whom could have pled guilty to lesser charges. Any one of whom. General Flynn did, by the way.
All while issuing selectively timed and perfectly planned indictments against President Trump. Today, we are joined by two whistleblowers from the
perfectly planned
IRS. There are also whistleblowers.
Perfectly planned would have been like 2 months after the last election. That would have been perfect.
Whistleblowers from within the FBI and the DOJ. All these people are stepping forward now because after the 2022 election, the American people have entrusted the House majority to Republicans, granting us subpoena power. With gavels in hand, we now possess crucial evidence just months into our investigations.
Okay, but we don't have any evidence, so I'd like to see it if someone could contact Mr. Timmons.
The American people can see plain as day the corruption, bribery, and criminal actions of the Biden family. We are here to do the
Oh, okay, but it's only Joe Biden that we're concerned with because he's the elected public official, and we don't have any evidence.
Jobs that the DOJ, the FBI, and the IRS refuse to do. They have failed to fulfill their duties and properly.
Oh, okay, but the IRS guys are sitting right in front of you, and they recommended prosecution for felonies. So stop hammering the IRS.
Investigate the Biden family and their international bribery schemes, which resulted in million-dollar payouts. I want to again thank you both for coming forward. I cannot imagine how difficult this has been on you and your family.
And
I think the best use of my time is to help simplify the complex scheme for the American people.
Okay.
Help do the job that
all right, but do you have a question?
DOJ, IRS, and FBI, they just refuse to do. We talk about China.
Again, the IRS is right in front of you, and they tried to do what you're saying they should have done.
We talk about Romania, Ukraine. It all seems complicated. But this scheme was born in 2014 in Ukraine and then replicated in other countries. Okay. Ukraine is the proof of concept, if you will. This is the scheme, simple. Foreign client has a problem. Pays a Biden. Vice President Biden travels to the country. Vice President Biden leverages U.S. influence to force a favorable outcome for the client. The Biden family,
which he was told to do by Obama, his boss, and the entire international community agrees with, including the IMF, whose money it is. But okay.
Earns their fee. That's the scheme. That's the scheme.
Is it? Well, then the people bribing the Bidens are idiots.
So let's just start with Ukraine so I can just show you the proof of concept. I'm going to walk you through the timeline. In 2014, Burisma has a problem. They want to get their stock listed on Wall Street. But the prosecutor general is investigating corruption.
He's not. That was done by 2014.
And they can't get the outcome they want in New York. So what do? They hire Hunter Biden, pay him millions of dollars.
In 2015.
Mr. Ziegler, my only question for you is going to be, if I can direct you to page 99 of your transcript, is it accurate to
He's got a question.
Say Hunter Biden received millions of dollars from Burisma?
Yes, that would be accurate.
Thank you. To the American people, I want to point out briefly that Hunter Biden has absolutely zero qualifications in this industry.
He is a lawyer. He's a lawyer. He was hired as a lawyer.
Or in business in general, but he does have the big guy. November 2nd, 2015.
We're not sure who the big guy is, nor is there any evidence of any money going to the big guy, if it's Joe Biden.
In an email to Hunter, Burisma executive says that he's demanding a high-level U.S. official visit Ukraine to force out Shokin. This is in an email obtained from Hunter Biden's laptop.
Okay, sure.
November 14th, 2015. Hunter Biden confirms the big guy's on the way. Vice President Biden's coming. Have no fear. December 7th through 9th, Biden has an official visit using U.S. tax dollars, threatens President Poroshenko to withhold a $1 billion loan guarantee if Shokin isn't fired. He lied about this during the campaign. He specifically said it wasn't true.
No, I don't remember him saying that.
Sure enough, Shokin's fired.
Right.
If you have any questions about whether he fired him, January 23rd of 2018, he brags about it years later.
Right?
Ladies and gentlemen, American people, that's true. Sure enough, Shokin's fired. If you have any questions about whether he fired him, January 23rd of 2018, he brags about it years later.
Right? Of doing his job. That's what he was sent there to do by President Obama.
Ladies and gentlemen, American people,
Yeah.
that's the scheme. That is the proof of concept.
That Joe Biden do his job?
They replicated it again and again because they never dreamt Biden would.
Where's the other evidence then? Where's the Romania? Where's the China? Where's the Russia? Where's any of it? If he replicated again and again and again, there's got to be some evidence.
Be president. No one did. But he is our president. And because of his actions, because of his,
What did he
gentlemen, American people,
Yeah.
that's the scheme.
That's us.
That is the proof of concept. They replicated it again and again because they never dreamt Biden would be president. No one did. But he is our president.
Nobody dreamt that Joe Biden, the former vice president, would be president? How can you say that?
And because of his actions, because of him selling policy decisions to adversaries abroad.
Chuck Grassley and Ron Johnson, both stalwart Republicans, did an investigation to see if any policy was changed by Joe Biden. An 83-page report determined that no American policy was diverted or changed or altered, same word, by President Biden or Vice President Biden.
Abroad for personal gain. He is vulnerable. He is vulnerable.
Oh, yeah.
And our national security is vulnerable because of it. We are not here to prosecute Hunter Biden. We don't care about Hunter Biden. We care about our country's national security decisions and whether our
they don't care about Hunter Biden.
president is compromised.
Uh-huh.
That's why we're here.
Okay.
That is why we're here.
Show us any evidence that President Biden, since that's all you care about, show us any evidence that he's been compromised.
With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Okay.
Gentleman yields back. Chair now recognizes Mr. Conley from Virginia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here today. My friend from South Carolina said he was going to simplify it for the American people.
I cannot watch Connolly without getting hungry for fried chicken, and I haven't eaten anything today.
I think he succeeded. So simple as to be unrecognizable. And if we're going to talk about Ukraine and Burisma, let's remember that the President of the United States, not Joe Biden, Donald J. Trump, was impeached over a phone call to the President of Ukraine wanting to get dirt on this very subject, on this very individual, with this very company, and withheld military equipment desperately needed, as we now know, including Javelin missiles, which are very useful in anti-tank warfare, to get it, for which he was impeached, quite correctly. But my friends on the other side of the aisle all voted against that. They had no problem with that kind of interference that directly affected national security.
Yep.
Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler, you both testified about the fact that you've been subject to
we've gotten to the point where the witnesses might as well not even be there. This is just grandstanding.
criticism, ridicule, public disclosure, perhaps menacing comments because you've come forward. Is that correct?
Medicine comments?
No.
Menacing.
Oh, menacing comments.
Menacing comments.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And you too, Mr. Ziegler.
Yes,
Right.
I have.
That must be a terrible feeling. And whoever does that, I think you'd probably both agree, is doing a disservice to the country and to you individually. You're simply doing your duty as you see the light. Fair enough?
Yes.
Mr. Ziegler?
I am doing my duty.
Yes. So can you imagine how the district attorney in Fulton County, Georgia must feel? Or the district attorney in Manhattan must feel? Or the special counsel of the Department of Justice, Mr. Smith, must feel? When the very subject of an indictment or a pending indictment takes to public rallies and ridicules them by name, disparages them by name, characterizes them by name, putting them and their families at the same risk you're experiencing. If it's wrong for these anonymous people to criticize you, it must certainly be wrong that the former President of the United States would demonize people doing their jobs just like you try to do yours, as they see the light. You can disagree with their judgment, but it's not right to disparage their character. And what's so ironic about this hearing is, again, not one mention on the other side of the aisle about that malign behavior by the very subject of the indictment. And speaking of interference, the American people know President Trump pressured the Justice Department, which we're talking about here today. Like, wouldn't that be wrong if someone did that, to go easy on his friend Michael Flynn?
Again, we've gotten to the point of grandstanding here, so I think I'll cut out in a little while here. We'll see when Fox cuts away, but this is what always happens. There's a few questions at the beginning, and then it's just 5-minute speeches about how their side is right.
We know when President Trump's handpicked Attorney General William Barr took the reins, he pressured officials to reduce their sentencing for Roger Stone and glossed over Robert Mueller's 2016 presidential election report, saying it exonerated the president, when in fact Robert Mueller explicitly said no, it did not, and listed 10 specific items of obstruction of justice he recommended be pursued, and pointed out, lest we misunderstand the pursuit part, he couldn't indict a sitting president according to DOJ guidelines. But he said in his report, an enterprising district attorney, once that president left office, might want to pursue it. According to recent reporting in the New York Times, former President Trump explicitly told his chief of staff, John Kelly, that they, quote, ought to investigate and get the IRS on former civil servants that Mr. Trump considered his political enemies. Explicit testimony from his own chief of staff. But again, absolute silence on the other side of the aisle, including from the Ways and Means Committee, which purports to be so concerned about any hint of interference by any.
Yeah, guys, please go ahead and smash the like button or the dislike button. I don't think it makes a difference.
Political.
And don't smash it, just click on it lightly. It's fine.
Entity or individual over the pristine work of the Department of Justice and the IRS. An agency, I might add, another piece of irony of this hearing, that has been disparaged as the hobnob, boot on the neck of the American taxpayer for so long by the majority, and denied resources by the majority. As we speak, they cut $24 billion in the debt ceiling compromise agreement out of the $80 billion we provided to, in fact, give you more resources to do your job. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back, and we're going to have 2 more questions, and at the request of the witnesses at every 90-minute mark, we're going to take a 10-minute bathroom recess. So we'll recognize the next 2 questioners and then go to that recess. Right now, Chair recognizes
there's no questioners.
Representative Turner from Ohio for 5 minutes.
Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I appreciate your courage, and I appreciate your dedication to the truth and your sense of obligation. Surprisingly, my questions are actually going to be about your testimony and the subject matter as to why we're here. We're going to have a little shift to actually talk about what you're here for.
Go for it.
I'm going to cite specific spots of your transcript testimony for each of you, but I don't think you'll have to read along. I'm going to do it for the purposes of the record. If I ask a question after having cited one and you want to refer to it and take a pause, please let me know, but I think pretty much we'll be able to follow along. Mr. Ziegler, you stated on page 17 of your transcript that you started this investigation in November of 2018 after reviewing bank reports related to another case that you were working on a social media company. Those bank reports identified Hunter Biden as paying prostitutes related to a potential prostitution ring. Also included those bank reports was evidence that Hunter Biden was living lavishly through his corporate bank account. Mr. Ziegler, when you make the statement, did you actually review these bank statements? This is not knowledge, in other words, that you got from someone else, that someone is relating to you what they said. You've actually looked at these documents.
That is correct. I actually looked at them.
Mr. Shapley, you testified on page 57 concerning the 2014 tax report that what Hunter Biden did is that he told Burisma to send that income to Rosemont Seneca Bohai, and that when the money came back to him, he booked it as a loan. You then go on to testify that it should have been taxable as soon as it became income from Burisma to Hunter, and whatever he did with it after that was really just a scheme to evade taxes for that year. You had that Rosemont Seneca Bohai and it did not book this as a loan itself, so Biden is treating it differently than they did. Did you look actually at those records? Is this actually your viewing of them to make this, to create this testimony?
Yeah, I looked at the evidence, especially Ziegler would be the expert that saw every single piece. But yes, I saw that evidence.
So, Mr. Ziegler, you also looked at these bank records with respect to the 2014 tax payment.
Right, and it was decided that Hunter Biden should be prosecuted on felonies for those years, and then he wasn't. We've established this.
From Burisma.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Shapley, you went on to say, this is like textbook. I learned at basic training nominee stuff, and in all of these defenses, it was a loan. You got to have a promissory note, you've got to have defined interest, and you've got to have repayments, and none of them were included. So right. Hunter Biden claims this is a loan, but the
right. So what well, I mean, it's self-explanatory. Nobody needs me to explain.
The company he got it from doesn't claim it as a loan. There's no promissory note. There's no interest. There's no repayments.
This, by the way, is how the Trump organization operates.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
They've been found guilty of it 9 times.
Correct.
And they actually booked it, Rosemont Seneca Bohai booked it as a deduction.
As a deduction, meaning it would have been a payment to him, and so it would have been deductible to them.
Correct.
Income to him, then payable with tax. Excellent. So, but it wasn't just the bank.
That way, Rosemont, which is the corporation, doesn't claim it, doesn't pay taxes on it, and Hunter Biden, when claiming it's a loan, also doesn't pay taxes on it, which is a crime, which it was recommended he be charged with. These are questions for them, but we've already established this. David Weiss should be there. He is the U.S. attorney.
Bank documents that you looked at, you also had the opportunity to look at a memo from Eric Sherwin, and Eric Sherwin was actually Hunter Biden's accountant. And Mr. Shapley, in your testimony, page 57, you included Exhibit 4, a memo from Hunter's accountant saying, you're going to owe tax on this $400,000. So you've got the accountant even agreeing with your position that this is income and that there should have been income tax paid on it.
Right.
Correction to that is that I did not provide this document. This was provided by the committee.
Okay, excellent. Well, we have it then in the public testimony, public record of his accountant agreeing. So both of you, I think, indicate that the taxable amount of the $400,000 would have been about $125,000 that Hunter Biden would have had to pay on the $400,000 of income. Is that correct, Mr. Chavley?
That's correct.
Mr. Ziegler?
Yes, that's correct.
And you've had no evidence in all the records that you've looked at that those taxes were ever paid?
No, they were not.
Yeah, no, they were not paid by Hunter Biden.
And the statute of limitations was allowed to run, Mr. Shapley, you go on to state that in order
by Trump-appointed attorney David Weiss.
for him to pay this, he'd have to pay it voluntarily, that the government doesn't have a way to compel him to pay it because they've allowed the statute of limitations. It's not he got out of criminal, he got out of having to pay the tax, right?
That's correct. The civil and criminal statute of limitations have expired for that tax year.
So he has in his pocket $125,000 of money that should have gone to the federal government as taxes. When in the state of Ohio, you've got average family earning about $62,000 a household. That's like 2 full.
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. Oh, that's right. They're allowed to say whatever they want to say.
Full households of tax income that he got to keep in his pocket. The thing I wonder is that he could pay that today, right? Voluntarily.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
If he chose to voluntarily, yes, he could.
And perhaps Mr. President, who's supposed to be in charge of taxes coming to our nation and who so frequently tells us that the American people aren't paying enough taxes, might want to wander down the hall at the White House.
He does not say that.
And turn to his son and say, Hunter Biden, why don't you pay your taxes for 2014? Because I got 2 men who just testified there's $125,000 owed and he ought to cut the check. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentleman yields back.
It's an excellent point. Why not?
Chair now recognizes Ms. Norton from Washington, D.C.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler, thank you for being here today. We're obviously going to talk a lot in this hearing about the investigation into Hunter Biden's taxes. So I think it's important.
Drinking word, drink up.
Important that we set the scene and make it clear what type of investigation we're talking about. Mr. Ziegler, what year did you open the Hunter Biden investigation?
And
That
who
was
president
2018, November of
during that
2018.
year?
2018.
Yeah,
Thank
was Joe
you.
Biden
The
president?
Department of Justice announced a plea agreement with Hunter Biden last month. So I estimate that you spent 4 or 5 years on this investigation, Mr. Ziegler?
That would be correct.
Mr. Ziegler, in your testimony before the Ways and Means Committee, you said that when your time working on the investigation ended, it was both, and here I'm quoting, 99.9% done, that's end quote, and that you had, here I'm quoting again, worked to complete 95% of the investigation, end quote. Given this testimony, is it fair to say, Mr. Ziegler, that in the years that you spent on the investigation, you saw it nearly to completion?
So that reference was to the tax case. So the tax investigation, as far as all the work that we had done regarding that, 99% of that had been done to that date.
Exactly. Mr. Shapley, on page 12 of your transcript, of the transcript from your interview with the Ways and Means Committee, you described the IRS team that worked on this investigation as consisting of, and here I'm quoting, 12 elite agents who were selected based on their experience and performance in the area of complex, high-dollar international tax investigations, end quote. Mr. Shapley, how serious are the investigations undertaken by these elite agents?
I'm not sure I understand how to
I
answer
don't get
your
the
question. How
question.
serious?
Yes.
What?
Do they have to be very serious to be undertaken by such elite agents?
Well, I think I can answer this.
Yes?
We got to treat each taxpayer the same. That's the most important part. We're kind of the agents with the International Tax Group that come in there and that we have the expertise to work these complex financial investigations. So whether they're more serious or we have to treat each person, each taxpayer the same. And that's what I try to do in my job.
Yeah, I was referring to these particularly complex, high-dollar tax concerns. I understand you have to give equal treatment. Mr. Ziegler, you called Hunter Biden investigations a, quote, complex.
At least she's asking questions.
Criminal tax investigation, end quote. And I understand that it was an interagency effort involving the IRS, the FBI, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Delaware, and DOJ's tax division in D.C. Mr. Ziegler, is it fair to say that this sort of interagency team is only assembled for serious and complex investigations?
So I can only speak to what happened in this particular investigation. The reason why other agencies might join an investigation, that just depends on the crimes we're investigating. Us at the IRS, we are the only agency in the federal government that is allowed to investigate tax crimes. So that's why you have to have, if you have a tax crime case, you have to have the IRS on that case.
Yeah, and you had lots of other agencies as well. Look, it sounds like Hunter Biden's taxes were subject to a great deal.
Okay, I don't know if this is Ashley's Babbitt mom or not, but if this is the same lady as before, she had on a white t-shirt before. Maybe it's a white long sleeve or something? I don't know what's happening here.
Deal of scrutiny and rigorous review by a large team of expert investigators who had experience working complex cases. This investigation occurred over several years, spanned multiple agencies and divisions, and had an expert team. The time, personnel, and other sources devoted to this investigation make it abundantly clear that this investigation was taken seriously by both the IRS.
Well, no, now you can see her bare sleeves. So she's wearing a t-shirt now, a green t-shirt. Unless it's a cardigan, I don't know.
IRS and DOJ, while our witnesses here today may disagree with the U.S. Attorney's decisions, it is undeniable that Hunter Biden was subject to a thorough and rigorous investigation. I thank you, and I yield to the ranking member.
Gentlelady yields back, and as we promised the witnesses, we're going to take a 10-minute recess, at which point we...
Well, apparently